Tonight, we know 96 people have been killed. Currently, 161 remain missing. In all across Texas, 120 have been killed.
We are live for this special chill as we are waiting for the president to touch down at Lackland before he makes his way here to Kerr County for a day of meeting with first responders, victims, and holding a roundtable with local elected officials.
We can tell you out here right now as we set the scene, we've heard tractor trailers, we've heard chainsaws going as volunteers are still on the ground, as they have been now since day one of this disaster exactly 1 week ago today.
Okay, so we have a live shot that we can see on a monitor right in front of us. You may notice us looking down, and we've taken that full. We're hearing that the president has landed at the Lackland Air Force Base. He was set to land a little while ago, so it's running a little bit behind. The original plan was to land in Kerrville at 12:20. That may be pushed back a little bit because the landing at Lackland is a little later. The plan is to meet with first responders, receive a briefing from local elected officials, meet with family that have been affected by this flooding tragedy, and then at 2:10, there's a roundtable plan with local officials to include Governor Greg Abbott.
One thing to point out, we were told just over the last couple of days, we anticipated the president arriving here to the Hill Country. We were told by some of the first responders out here that this would not hinder their efforts to continue their search and recovery efforts, in which they've been doing now for going on a week.
Yeah, so that was yesterday. So there were some folks speaking to us, and there are first responders and search and rescue teams from all around the state, in fact, all around the country. There are even international teams here in Kerr County and the surrounding areas, because this is an 80-mile stretch of the Guadalupe River that they have all of these efforts going on. And you can probably hear the debris cleaning up in the background. Trucks are beeping as they're throwing their machines into reverse. We saw an entire roof pulled up to our right just a little while ago. This is not what it looked like a week ago, even though you can still see everything is piles of debris here. It was much different a week ago.
And again, you're taking a live look right now at Kelly Field. That is where President and Air Force One have arrived. We're told he will be boarding Marine One momentarily, making his way here to the Kerrville area. Right now, we are currently in the Ingram area, and pardon us if it does get a little louder again. Search and recovery efforts are underway just behind us. But the president will make his way here to the Hill Country, where we're told, and there it is, Air Force One.
There is Air Force One.
We're told he will be meeting with volunteers, with first responders. We're told that the governor will be here, Senator Ted Cruz will be here. Also, at last check, a couple of others that will be meeting with him. He will also be meeting with family and those who have been impacted out here. We're also told once he is here, after boarding Marine One, coming to this area, he will then board another chopper to get a survey from up above of all the damage out here.
So 1 week ago today, where we're standing, there were many RVs, there were families, there were people out here. They were playing in the river. The owner of the campground that Howdy's Bar and Chill, where we're at, is also the Blue Oaks family campground, and the owner has spoken with us multiple times in the last week. But she was saying, you know, everybody was out here. The weather was perfect. We were so excited because we'd had a little bit of rain. There wasn't as big of a fire risk. It wasn't as dry. So we were really excited to be able to have fireworks. Everyone was just, people were playing in the rivers. There was a family of 5 right by the river. They were all playing, and now you're seeing video of the damage. And so right here where we are behind us, there was just RVs. There were 18 RVs on the main spot. There's an island right over there. There were 5 more RVs over there. Every single one of them was swept away.
And to give you a bit of more perspective as far as what it is that these search and recovery crews are up against, we're being told that in fact it is a 200-mile stretch of the Guadalupe River, all the way from Hunt, all the way down to Canyon Lake that we're looking at here. In fact, we heard from Ingram volunteer, it was going to be volunteers, it was going to be the fire department, and they told us for them specifically, they're going to be focusing on a particular 8-mile stretch. And within that 8-mile stretch that they're focusing on, they're telling us that these piles of debris, in some cases 20 to 30 feet high, and they tell us within those piles of debris are vehicles, are RVs, you name it, it is in there. Unfortunately, that is part of the reason they are out there. They are still trying to find those 161 people who are missing in this immediate area.
Just from Kerr County, as we've said, 96 people have been confirmed killed, but 161 people are still missing. And We've heard from folks who have said, we aren't even close to have gotten to all of the debris piles. There are vehicles in some cases stacked, 40, 50 of them, in these massive piles that nobody's been able to get to. And, you know, we've heard police, fire officials from other communities who have come out saying volunteers are showing up, scores of them, and we're getting to as much as we can, but we have to very carefully and very efficiently check all of these debris piles because you don't know what's in them. We're looking for bodies or parts of bodies, which is a really hard thing to say, but so they can't just go in with bulldozers and plow them over because they are also looking for people who didn't survive the floods. And when you're talking dozens of vehicles in these debris piles, you have to go in, and they're saying you have to search piece by piece, you have to go in by hand. And so it's a process that is just going to take a long time. Once they're finished clearing out areas, and I can see some of them that have been marked, they're marking them with flags or with paint to show we checked this area, anything that was here is we've gone through to look for any of the victims of these floods. The debris removal can now move forward.
And again, what you're taking right now, a live look at, is going to be Air Force One after landing there at Kelly Field. We are anticipating moments from now seeing the president and as well who he will be greeted by there at the tarmac. But again, this meeting we are anticipating the governor, we are expecting Senator Ted Cruz, John Cornyn as well. The last ad most recently was going to be the Ag Commissioner Sid Miller as well. We would anticipate he will be meeting with Kerr County, Mayor of Kerrville, local, state, federal. They will all be here and on the ground to see the damage for themselves and assess it, as well as, just as importantly, meet with those families who have been impacted by this devastation out here.
The alerts that we had from the White House was that the president was leaving around 9:30 this morning. Of course, it takes a couple hours to make it all the way from Washington, D.C. to here where he is, which is San Antonio at Lackland. Then he'll be boarding another vessel to get here. And that was planned for around 12:20. This is all looking like it's a little bit off schedule, so that might be happening a little later. We don't know if that means that everything will be pushed through the day, or he'll just have less time to do certain things. Because we know he is planning to get to New Jersey later today. Was supposed to be leaving here in the late afternoon at
roughly
some point.
Roughly about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, about
of course,
4
the
o'clock.
timetable could be in flux. Things could shift
now
at this point. We can tell you that from the volunteers and first responders out here, they have maintained since day one that their priority is and will be finding those who are missing. That will be number one. One of the things that the president recently touched on, though, as well, and it's a big question being asked by not just the residents here, but everybody who is watching this story right now, as far as the alert and warning system out here. What else could have been done? Those questions are going to be on the table. Of course, that is why the president is meeting with who he is that he's meeting with today. And past that, then starts the process of recovery, rebuilding, FEMA assistance, what help can be given to the people out here who have been devastated in this hill country flooding tragedy.
Yes, so one of the quotes that we had was, we want to make sure that when we end that session, the special session that the governor has called for 2 Mondays from now, about a week and a half, that we end it making sure these communities are better, more resilient, and have the resources they need for the next chapter of their lives. Right when this happened, the president signed off on Abbott's request for a major disaster declaration, which the president did for all of the counties impacted by the flooding. So we're seeing the door of Air Force One open up. You're seeing everything get set up. We've all seen it on the news. You see it internationally, nationally, of the president walking out the door of the plane. The First Lady is with him. Melania Trump will be with him. They're now attaching those stairs, the moving walk, the stairway there, to the side of the plane, where we'll see the president come out the door, and he and the First Lady will both walk down the stairs and begin the next leg of their journey to get here to Kerr County. A bit surreal, and there's a closer look at the door. It is just surreal being here, though, because and knowing that 1 week ago, who could have known that this would be happening? Just 1 week ago, it was completely different here. People were set up, they were having fun. They were getting ready for the 4th of July. There was a huge fireworks show, a band. All of the equipment was even set up, which was destroyed in the flooding, which was right by the bridge.
The Louise Hayes Bridge,
the Louise Hayes
that's
Bridge.
for the 4th of July celebrations. And I can tell you that as we were coming in for this coverage, it's a little bit of a surreal, as well, to use that word, moment when you see the main strip there in Kerrville before we got here to Ingram. It seems like things are fine just up the road, but less than a mile or two, less than 2 miles down the road, you've got what you've got behind us, sheer devastation for miles and miles and miles. And that's going to be the case all up and down the Guadalupe right now. As again, that familiar sound of chainsaws and tractors and volunteers that are out there hard at work. And mind you, they've been hard at work 24/7 for 7 days now in a row since this happened last Friday. That is another reason why the president is here. It marks that 1 week since this tragedy unfolded.
Yeah, and for the local teams here in Kerr County and the surrounding counties, this started around 3 a.m. Friday, and they have been working tirelessly ever since. And even where we are right now, I can see to the right, there's piles of debris. So even where we are, this was underwater, but just seeing for ourselves the trees with the massive scarring on it, where vehicles and debris, pieces of houses, the RVs were just being picked up and moved. And huge chunks have been knocked out so high up on these trees.
Yeah.
Entire trees were underwater, and they're just sideways now. Okay, now we're seeing the president and the first lady. They have walked out. They are on the stairs, making their way down the staircase. That is President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump.
We do expect Governor Abbott to likely meet him there on the tarmac, along with some of the other dignitaries, state, local leaders. The list continues to grow of who will be here at this roundtable discussion. But as you see there, President and First Lady on the tarmac now, landing down. This is going to be in San Antonio, Kelly Field at Lackland Air Force Base, as he will now board Marine One momentarily to make his way here to the Kerrville area. We can tell you that we do have crews spread out across the area, including at the site in which that roundtable will be held. We have a crew there on the ground. There's Senator Ted Cruz, as you see, and there's John Cornyn as well. Again, those are some of the dignitaries, local and state, who have met him here at Lackland. Likely expect that they will make their way here as well, because they too, as I understood, will likely be a part of that roundtable discussion, or they will be here on the ground to also take a tour. And we've seen them
throughout the week as well, so they already have a good sense of what to expect once they get here. No doubt they were on the plane from D.C. They've already had those conversations with the president. They've already seen the situation here and how devastating and how catastrophic this was. But the president and the first lady themselves will now get a firsthand look and an opportunity to talk to all of the people who've been so gravely affected by this horrible, tragic situation. 161 people at least remain missing. There it looks like our reporter and photographer are starting to pack the shot up as the president moves to Marine One to begin the next leg of travel, which is arriving here in Kerr County.
So there's a lot of reasons the president would come right now. Early on, shortly after the devastation happened, shortly after the flooding, he had mentioned, and that was one of the things that first responders had said, we knew that volunteers are going to be out here. We knew first responders are going to be out here, but we didn't want people to get in the way. That's one of the things that the president's maintained throughout this entire week. He said he will come, but he didn't want to get in the way of anything.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason that he's coming right now. Other parts in this case is to meet with the families and victims of those who have been affected, but also to get a sense of what it is that this community is up against now. All the devastation, all the debris, what type of resources that we will need here in this immediate area to start that process of rebuilding and recovering. The president will see it firsthand now and hear from those right here in the community.
And I expect Marine One will start in just a minute. We're going to see the helicopter take off, but it is truly unbelievable seeing it firsthand. And I'm sure the president and the first lady will be a bit overwhelmed, because just piles, massive piles of limbs and pieces of tree and branches. And we're seeing the choppers start to turn on. The blades now going. I'm sure it'll take off in just a moment. We're going to stay with this shot until we can't see them anymore. Of course, we're into our new newscast right now, so we aren't going to be going anywhere.
And again, to give you a sense of what it is that's out here, in addition to the search and recovery crews that are out here, as we drove in down that main strip, you see a lot of volunteers set up in different business parking lots, in several churches on the way out here. And that's going to be like their central command for them to figure out what it is that they need to do to help the community right now. We know in downtown Kerrville, there's a memorial that continues to grow. We highlighted it just yesterday. It stood some 50 feet long, and in it, pictures, balloons, flowers, and it continued to grow. And I think that is going to be a center where a lot of people are coming together to help in this grieving process, to help in the healing process. But that's visually, in addition to all this debris. There's a lot of debris, and the first responders have mentioned it's going to be slow, it's going to be methodical, it's going to take time for them to do that, which means that number of 161, it's going to take time before they find all of those individuals. And for that reason, or for that matter, possibly even more, but it's going to just take time.
And that was their best guess. They said these are the people we've been asking for days. They didn't give us a number of the suspected missing. They said because it's the 4th of July, we know there are people at these campgrounds. There are people in town. We just don't know who they are because they're not local. We don't have a number. We can't give you a number. They were calling for people to call in and report people that they knew were going to be here if they're missing and hadn't been heard from. And from that number, they were able to say, we know we have at least 161 people who are missing right now. That number is likely higher. But you can see right in this live shot the team of other aircrafts that escort the president. I know we have Jay Avila and Christina De Leon standing by. Guys, what is your take on all of this?
It's a very sad situation to see the president and the first lady enter our state, enter our city, and now going to see the flood damaged area in Kerrville and later on be meeting with some loved ones. I know Jay and I have visited this area, and now seeing the flattened land behind you, I can't imagine just seeing the result of what the flooding did, right, Jay?
Their breaths are going to be taken away when they see from the air the extent of the damage out there. Many of us have been reporting from Kerrville, Hunt, Ingram since the day of this flood a week ago. And we have met the people there who went through it and some of the first responders. And we've been covering the news conferences since they started having them there locally. And I remember on the second day, which was Saturday, President Trump sent the Homeland Secretary out to Texas, Kristi Noem, and she was at the news conference there. And she said that she had talked personally to the president a couple of times on Saturday, that he had expressed his grief and condolences over the losses, and the fact that he was going to offer up whatever Texas needed in terms of aircraft, in terms of search crews, personnel from all different agencies in order to help out with the effort here. And that night, Governor Abbott and as well as Nim Kidd, who runs the Emergency Operations Center, Texas, they were saying that they had received help already from the federal government. So the state and the federal government have been working hand in hand, and the president has been obviously briefed and up to speed up to this point on what's been going on here.
Yeah, you see Marine One taking off, and as they will take that short trip to Kerrville, it will take no more than 20 minutes or so to get their eyes basically on Kerrville, and I'm sure they're looking out the windows. It is an overcast day today, so hopefully not too sunny out there for them. And when they see the utter devastation of the Guadalupe River and see the water has receded so much, they can only imagine the swell of that water and how it overtook so many people. And again, it has claimed the lives, if we go through the numbers again, of 96 people in Kerr County alone. The utter devastation and the lives that it has claimed so many people here in the state of Texas. And again, 161 people remain missing statewide. 120 people have died in the flooding. And then later on, as this Marine One lands, they will meet with family members of those affected, so many of them children, Jay. And that's what makes this so sad for the parents, the mothers and the fathers who've lost loved ones to this tragedy. 1 week ago today, I was on the ground there, obviously at one of those reunification centers, and I talked to a lady who said she got a hold of people from all of the camps, but it was Camp Mystic that she couldn't get a hold of. And then later on, now we know the doomed Camp Mystic is where the most lives were indeed lost.
Jonathan and Mandy, back to you.
Jay, I did want, yeah, you know what, Jay, before we let you go, I did want to ask you a question. We know that the president weighed in, or at least spoke a little bit about as far as warning system are concerned, and that's one of the angles that you were touching on right now. How much of that, priority number one is to find those that are missing and reuniting them with loved ones tonight, but how much of that will it be, I guess, priority number two on the list at this roundtable discussion, would you imagine, with the locals and state leaders out here?
Well, it will be a big topic because there has been a lot of second guessing and justified criticism of the slow response to be able to get a warning out there. Local officials have kind of dodged the questions up to this point. Certainly they are busy with what they have to do. It's a very solemn, important task that they have undertaken, but they also do owe the public answers on why so many people in camps and RV areas were not warned of the rising floodwaters the way that they could have been if certain systems were in place. I'm speaking specifically about the Code Red system that was in place there locally in Kerrville, where people sign up, they make sure that they're registered, and then messages, it's a web-based system that sends out texts, phone calls, warnings to people on their cell phones. And even though cell phone service can be spotty out there, it can be a pretty reliable system and reach people who are even visitors and tourists and let them know of different problems. We have heard from people who have said that they did receive some National Weather Service alerts in the days and hours before the flooding. And so it would seem that they would have been able to get these Code Red type of warnings from local officials there in Kerr County. But for some reason, those Code Red messages warning about the rising floodwaters did not go out at 4:20, 4:30, around that time of the morning, Friday morning, when the water suddenly started to really rise and become dangerous. In fact, it wasn't until around 6 when the messages went out.
And we heard from you yesterday, Jay, when we had breaking news. We had the audio of a 911 dispatcher. There was a first responder saying, "Can we get a Code Red out?" And the dispatcher said, "I'll have to check with my supervisor." Can you walk us through that? Because Well,
that was, we believe, a volunteer firefighter from the community of Hunt, and was seeing firsthand the water rising and the implications there. And so it was 4:22 in the morning when that dispatch traffic happened that we were able to obtain, telling a dispatcher, obviously the first responders in the area are aware of Code Red. They know that it can alert a wide swath of people. And so he asked for that, and the dispatcher said that there was no approval at that point to put it out. And then there's this gap that we have. We don't know for sure when the first Code Red went out. All we know, all that has been answered for us, is that the mayor said that he got one around 6 o'clock that he was aware of. So obviously you're talking about around a gap of 90 minutes there, what was happening, because most of the damage, the destruction and the loss was happening during that window. And so it's crucial to get the answer of why that wasn't sent out.
Jay, thank you for that insight. So you're looking right now live at the president, or you were at least, who is going to be making his way. That right there is Air Force One. The president has since left Air Force One. He's on Marine One, making his way the short flight here to the Kerrville area, where today he will be meeting with first responders, volunteers, state and local officials, along with the families impacted by this devastation.
To what Jay was just talking about, so I was looking for the transcription of the call. It was 4:22 a.m., like he said, when an Ingram volunteer firefighter called the dispatch saying the Guadalupe Schumacher sign is underwater on State Highway 39. Is there any way we can send a Code Red out to our Hunt residents, asking them to find higher ground or stay home? That was what he asked. The dispatcher responded, "We have to get that approved with our supervisor. Just be advised, we do have the Texas Water Rescue en route." It was too late for so many people. And that is why the president, as we just saw, lifted off there from Lackland on his way here to Kerr County to meet with a number of people who 1 week ago never could have imagined, never would have foresaw this being something that would happen on the holiday weekend, the 4th of July, even where we're standing. The owner of this place where we are said at 2:30 in the morning, I woke up and I went to check the river level. It was 2:30. It was fine. She said, I called the sheriff's office. They said they had no information. I went to bed. She said at 3:30, I woke up to screaming, and the water in RVs was already up to, it was knee deep. And at that point, they just started to knock on all the doors to all of the people at this RV park, the Blue Oaks RV park, to wake them up. Some of them, she said, didn't have shoes on. Some of them didn't have clothes on. Some of them were just grabbing anything they could. They were trying to get to their cars. They had to run away from where they were staying in the RVs. And every single one of the RVs here and at the campground next door was swept away. Yeah. Every single one of them. This lot was full of RVs. People here camping.
And mind you, this is just one spot of many, all and up and down the river. Again, to give you some sense and perspective of what it is that first responders and search and recovery crews are up against. We know that they're searching right now a 200-mile stretch of Guadalupe River from Hunt all the way down to Canyon Lake, as we understood it. We had spoken with Ingram just yesterday, who told us that they were focusing on that 8-mile stretch. But again, that was one of the first times that we had heard. We've seen for ourselves from up above just how much debris is piled up. But when they put that number 20 to 30 feet high in some places, I mean, that's way up. That's I don't know how many stories high up that is, but it's just piles and piles of debris, and that's what they're having to go. And they kept using the word methodical because they can't just jump in there and start pulling stuff out. Obviously, you don't want to put yourself in danger as well, but that's what it is that they're up against and what they have been up against for going on 7 days now. This is the 1 week mark.
I was walking along the river just where we are earlier, right before we came on air, and everywhere, not only is it just the brush and the trees, it's just pieces of metal, and there are canoes and kayaks mangled everywhere. There's just pieces of metal up against trees, things that were pushed away from where they were, and everywhere, trees that were submerged when the water rose to this unprecedented level, and that were pushed aside by all of the things floating down the river. The heavy impact in the water of all of the debris, because it was entire homes, it was entire RVs, it was entire vehicles, and those things. I mean, just to our right, we saw them pulling out a roof.
Yeah, it was a roof. We couldn't tell if it was a tractor trailer, or we couldn't tell if it was a tow truck that was coming by. But, you know, one of the things that we had seen, we had said from the very beginning, as we drove in, seeing all of these organizations that are stepping up and outpouring of support, we said it and we'll say it again, that even though we're seeing the worst in Mother Nature and what she left behind, on the flip side of that, we are now seeing the best in humanity, and that's everybody coming together to help in this process.
Just in this area, you know, the owner was saying, no officials have come out here to help, but you know who has? She was saying, I have had 60 people out here. It's clear now. It was not clear on Friday or on Saturday. It was a mess. So and it's people in the community that came out to help her.
Yeah, speaking of the shot that you're looking at right now, we're going to toss out to our David Mendoza. We do have a team out in the field right now. David, what is it that you're seeing out there?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Right now I'm off of Highway 27 in Kerrville right now. I had the chance to drive Highway 27, and there's scenes all up and down this highway like you're seeing in front of me here. People holding signs, people holding flags, eagerly awaiting Donald Trump's arrival. The airport area has since been kind of closed off. I've been forced to come over here to this intersection, but luckily I think the motorcade is coming through this intersection right now. I'll keep you posted. Back to you.
Okay, I want to go ahead and let you know, David, if you're trying to talk to us, this is live TV. We're doing our best. We can't hear anything that David is saying. So we'll just have to rely on everybody to let us know what's going on.
So the shot that you're looking at right now are going to be folks that are lined up on the street there, but we can tell you that right now they are still cleaning up just behind us here. Again, to give you some idea of where it is that we're at, we're going to be in Ingram right now, not too far from the Blue Oak RV that once was, most of it now gone. We're at Howdy's Bar and Restaurant. It has since reopened, as we were told, the volunteers and some of the others who are in this area. But right now, the owner here had talked to us just yesterday. Her concern is what type of help that she's going to get, what type of assistance. She told us firsthand that she did reach out to FEMA, and thus far that she was denied any assistance. But again, that was her account. We did reach out to FEMA to find out for ourselves to see what the deal was. But that's going to be one of many stories. And as we talked about, the priority right now is going to be the recovery of people. But then the next step is going to be the rebuilding and recovery, which goes hand in hand with FEMA assistance, resources. What kind of help is going to be out here for the people who desperately need it right now?
And this is a video that we've watched a couple times. It takes your breath away a bit. It shows how quickly the river levels rose. It was just unbelievable. And we've gotten a lot of videos. There's a flood gauge. This is when our reporter, Phil Sterling, was actually almost stuck in the flash flood. He said he saw a wall of water coming toward him. And before an instant had gone by, the water was up to the tires on the news vehicle. They jumped in and got out. But these are just some of the shots that we've seen over the last week, especially when the water was very high. But you see trees, like what's behind us, completely snapped in half.
Yeah. Since last week, we have been seeing stories of folks who had rescued folks, and it's been eye-opening to get those accounts there on Riverfront Road in Kerrville specifically, where one home was wiped off of its foundation, another slamming into another. We had heard stories from folks there who had the same story, had woken up in the middle of the night to screams, others seen flashes of lights. In one instance, they were able to grab onto another. Sadly, some of their other neighbors didn't make it. But when we heard those stories as well of folks saving one another, we are still hearing. That's the video that we're talking about right there. We're still hearing those stories, and again, you see that the water level had risen, not just up to those homes there along the banks of the Guadalupe, but it had crossed the street, and you could see the debris line. That's that house right there. You can see the debris line just on the other side of the fence and the other side of the street. That gives you an idea of just how high the water was. But then in that other video that you saw how quickly, there you go, you saw how quickly it was moving. And this is sadly what neighbors were up against. I mean, it came in, it ripped things apart, and it was do what you can to save yourselves. And we are hearing those stories, and it's truly moving. We just saw a story yesterday. Karina Hollingsworth brought us that story. It was of a gentleman who thankfully is alive today, but had mentioned that he was dealing with the loss of his wife some months past. But he said in his interview that he's not sure that she would have been able to have survived this had she lived through this. He got emotional at times, understandably so, but again, he was thankful to be alive today. But it's a lot to take in, a lot to process.
One of the other things that gentleman was talking about too is something that we really, really hate to see: looters. He said people came out and stole all my tools. Our reporters were on the ground when very soon after all of this started happening, and they said within 3 hours there were reports of people coming out and looting, which is, it's really sad to see people who've lost anything. This is the Hunt store. This is another, just a staple in this community. We have talked with folks who have been going to the Hunt store for decades. It's part of their identity. It's the identity of this town. It's the social gathering point. One gentleman spoke with our reporter, Taylor Whartonby, and he said, my wife and I were here a month ago. We've been dancing. He said, I grew up coming to this store, and it's gone. And it's, that people toss back to the flooding of 1987 and one in 1932, and they say a lot of these landmarks were here then, and they were still here afterward. But the Hunt store, for example, is no more, and they may rebuild, but it will be new. And
I was going to mention, we know that the governor held his press conference here, and again, to give you an indication of the community coming together, the Hunt store sign itself, it's now been rearranged, some of the letters, and they have, I guess, it says Hunt Strong now. And that kind of gives you a sense, even though it's something small, to read the sign on top of the building that once said Hunt store to now Hunt Strong. That's their idea of something small, just like that 50-foot wall of memorial that goes up in Kerrville right now. We do know that the president, again, what you're taking a live look at right now is folks there on the street waiting the arrival of the president. We know he took off from San Antonio not too long ago, should be arriving here in the Kerrville area at any moment right now, where he'll be meeting with first responders. But the president did speak earlier before making his way here to San Antonio. Let's take a listen.
It's a horrible thing, a horrible thing. Nobody can even believe it, such a thing. That much water that fast without a dam break. You'd think a dam would have to break to have it. So it's a terrible thing, but we're going to be there with some of the great families and others, the governor, everybody is going to be there.
And that is the president this morning before he left Washington, D.C., which we were told was around 9:30, kind of commenting on it's hard to believe that there was this much destruction without a dam breaking or something like that. But within an hour, we saw unprecedented flash flooding along the Guadalupe River. And like we said, they're unpacking 80 miles, an 80-mile stretch of what was affected. And you can see in this shot, just it's a warpath. It's a destruction zone. And it's not just trees and limbs and nature's debris. It's siding from houses, parts of vehicles, bridges, all sorts of things. So the president on his way here, you can see all of the people lining the road there. I believe that's Kerrville. That's where David Mendoza is. But like we said, we can't hear him, so we're just going to take the shot. But the president is going to be landing here shortly. And he will be landing and starting to meet with first responders. He'll have a briefing from elected officials. There are a number of them out here. We saw Ted Cruz. We saw John Cornyn out, all deboarding the plane of Air Force One and headed to Kirk County. They're also going to be meeting with some of the family that has been affected. At 2:10, they were scheduled to have a roundtable with local officials to include Governor Greg Abbott. We don't know if this timeline has changed since his landing timeline changed a little bit. So they have not given us an updated schedule, but that was the plan.
Tell you what, we'll go ahead and toss it back out to David Mendoza to let us know what it is that you're seeing out there, but we can't hear him. But let's go ahead and pitch it over to him to see the sights down there. David?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry you can't hear me. Right now I'm at Kerrville off the highway of 27, looking to where this helicopter is coming in to land. Moments ago I was at the airport and they kind of booted me out of that area. Also, there's plenty of people on the side of this road right now, eagerly waiting for his arrival. But I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated. I think his convoy is going to come through this area. Back to you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, David. Thanks a lot for that. We've seen that American flag, a symbol of hope here. We had seen it just at that bridge that was broken up. In all this devastation, we see the flags there at the folks who are lining up, waiting for the president to get here.
Okay, so we have one of our other reporters, Jordan Elder. She's going to actually be kind of traveling or following the president around. We'll hopefully hear from her in just a little while. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vehicles there lining the road, and I can't tell if those are law enforcement. That'll be the motorcade momentarily. That's going to be coming up. That's going to be ahead of the motorcade, but the president should be arriving here at any moment. As mentioned, we do have a crew there at where the area will be where he's planning to have this roundtable discussion with everybody. Did want to mention, as we've been talking about this from the very beginning, since day one, but also since our coverage today, there are a lot of resources that are needed out here. We have all that list of numbers and organizations that are helping out here. Donations are still needed. We know that from Ingram, they were telling us they do need volunteers still, but if you do make your way out here to help in the search and recovery effort, you need to check in so that they can account for you and so that you don't put yourself in harm's way. They will assign you to a specific area, so keep that in mind, that donations are still needed, but it is very specific. We've got that list for you at news4sa.com along with all of our other social media platforms. Just keep that in mind, as again, when we drove out here, we saw separate little command centers set up for all these organizations and churches that are coming together that are not only collecting goods but also dispersing them out to the people who need it right now. Yeah, and those folks from Fredericksburg who were here in town yesterday, we took a press release from them. It was the first time we heard from them. They had been kind of handed an 8-mile stretch, and that was just their zone. That's where they were looking. And they were saying so many people on their own are turning out to volunteer. And he said, it's amazing. We can't do it on our own. There's about 1,200 officials from all over the state out here from so many different groups, agencies that are here to help. But the people who are showing up on their own to lend a hand, to be here for their community and for other Texans has been amazing. The other reason is they don't want to have them go out on their own to search an area that has already been cleared, because that's a waste of resources. Another thing that they're asking, and especially today, is you cannot take your drones out right now. A few days ago, a drone collided and crashed into one of the search and rescue helicopters, and you're not supposed to have your drones out anyways, but now it's illegal. And he said they had caught 3 people independently out with drones yesterday and just made them pack up and leave. But it's a pretty heavy fine that you can be facing. So there's just a lot of people who get curious, who want to come out, see what's going on. Of course, the shot that we're seeing live now is the motorcade. I'm not sure exactly where David is on this road, but yeah, we can see the lights from some of these vehicles.
And again, if you're just joining us right now, to recap, we were anticipating a press conference earlier this morning that was canceled. We have been getting, for the most part, daily briefings to give us an update on the numbers. We know that the numbers that we got yesterday hadn't changed. So the numbers and totals as they stand now: 96 confirmed dead here in Kerr County. That includes 60 adults, 36 children, a total of 161 missing, and that includes 5 campers from Camp Mystic, along with 1 counselor. Across the entire state, it's 120 people who are dead from the same storm system that we're talking about today, sadly. And that is, again, the reason the president is here in Kerrville, to see it for himself, to get here on the ground and talk with the folks out here, state, local, federal, and also, just as importantly, the victims who've been impacted by this flood disaster.
And we don't know the locations that he's going to tour, if there's going to be anywhere specific, but if there are specific locations, I wouldn't be surprised if the president and first lady stop at Camp Mystic, because it has been just an absolute tragic situation, what we've seen there from so many of the campers, and the youngest campers from 3 of the cabins that were closest to the river, and the stories that we've heard coming out of the survivors, these little girls who saw their friends and their fellow campers swept away, and just the descriptions of what people saw and heard that night. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable tragedy. And even the director of Camp Mystic died in the floods, died trying to save the campers. It's just such a sad thing that there are so many campgrounds for kids. And as we saw, Camp Mystic is the one that has been truly impacted so incredibly by such a tragic, incredible loss of life.
We are anticipating the president, after he arrives here by way of motorcade, we are anticipating that he will likely be boarding a chopper to get an overhead bird's eye view, if you will, of all of the destruction out here. We know that earlier this week, before we heard from the governor, he had taken a tour along with the Texas Division of Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd. They had all looked at the damage from up above. We're anticipating that that's going to be the same vantage point that the president, once he does arrive here in Kerrville, will also be taking. Whether that happens directly before this roundtable discussion, thereafter, we're not sure just yet, but we are expecting the president to go in the air to get an idea of what it is. And again, we're talking 20 to 30 foot tall piles of debris out there, along with 200 river miles that they're going to be looking up and down the Guadalupe River here.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, out here, I've heard people saying, how long do you think it's going to take for the cleanup? How long do you think it's going to take? It's just going to be days or weeks. I mean, being out here, and I know how hard they've been working, it's just unbelievable. And that we're only seeing one spot of it. This is 80 miles long. I can't even put a number. It's going to be months. Let's go ahead and bring back Jay and Christina there in the studio.
All right. So what you're looking at is a live picture in Kerrville on one of the roadways there where they anticipate the president's motorcade to come through. And what you've seen a lot is a lot of law enforcement as they just kind of make a clean sweep through. And you see a lot of people who are fans of the president, a lot of patriotic fans. What you see also is a lot of media with them there. You see the flags, you see people dressed up. They are really looking forward to seeing the president and just getting a glimpse of him as his motorcade runs through the area. You see that a lot when he comes through. And so we are hoping to get a glimpse of him as well. We see people that look like they're possibly veterans, people that are just locals, and people that just want to show their support for the president and thank him for coming through Kerrville. But this looks like the route he's going to take. We've seen a lot of DPS troopers, a lot of local law enforcement, and again, just people making sure that he is safe en route to Kerrville. Marine One took off basically from Kelly Field, Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland, and will be landing in approximately 20 minutes or so. And when he does, the motorcade should make his way through here, but you saw a lot of law enforcement on motorcycle and in those SUVs and a lot of DPS troopers blocking the road. And then I know, Jay, you want to step in and talk about some of what has been alleged to be FEMA fails along the way with this massive flooding. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's something we have to touch on a little bit because it's a backdrop to this trip. These days, everything is very politicized, of course, but there are, of course, questions that need to be raised whenever there's a disaster of this magnitude. And so as we wait for the president, we'll talk about, basically, he has said that he wants to phase out FEMA and give more control to the states to handle disasters. This is the first really big, huge test of that philosophy, and he is getting some criticism. Also, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, CNN is reporting with sources, unnamed sources within FEMA, that the agency was slow to respond to the area because of these cost constraints, cost cutting that is happening within the agency. And they said specifically some of the search teams and rescue teams did not get on the ground until Monday, 72 hours after the flooding. Now, I did contact Homeland Security yesterday, and I reported on this. I'm reporting a little bit on this today at 5, that they have said that they are in the process of making FEMA leaner, and they do believe it will be a better agency when they allow governors and states themselves to take the lead when it comes to disasters. That doesn't mean that they aren't helping. In fact, at that news conference, the very next day after the flooding, Secretary Noem said that she had already had Coast Guard and Customs and Border Protection aircraft and personnel at the disposal of Texas. And so this is going to be an ongoing thing that we are hearing talked about the responsiveness of FEMA. And now we're starting to see a lot of law enforcement motorcycles, which is usually the signal the motorcade is almost here. This, of course, has become a very common thing in recent years for presidents to take an aerial tour of disaster areas so as to not to get in the way of things going on the ground, recovery efforts. They do it by air. President Biden visited North Carolina for Hurricane Helene, Florida for Hurricane Milton, and President Trump himself has visited North Carolina and Los Angeles after the devastating fires there. And so this is something that people have come to expect. It is, in a large way, symbolic because it allows the president to show concern for victims and their families, and allows the president, whether no matter who it is, to have face-to-face meetings with some of the victim families to let them know they're being heard and that the people around the rest of the country are feeling for them and for their loss. And that certainly is something that that is going to happen today, along with a roundtable with officials to try and get to the bottom of some of the shortcomings. Could it go smoother as far as notifying people here locally that a flooding is happening? That's one of the things they're going to talk about. Is there something Texas can do legislatively here in the special session coming up in a few days that would warn people in the camps and at the campsites and RV sites quicker that deadly flooding is on the way? Also, when it comes to FEMA, whether there's better coordination that can be had between the states and the government as it is going through a downsizing that I just mentioned and talked about. And that is happening, but I will say that the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, on her visit here last Saturday, one day after the flooding, she did say, and when you analyze her words, you can tell that she's saying that she's going to release assets, and their strategy is to release assets as the state of Texas asks for them. So initially it was aircraft, helicopters with thermal imaging capability that NIM-KID with the state of Texas had told me they didn't have enough of, and so they wanted more, and that she responded and made those available through the Coast Guard. That's one of her agencies, along with Customs and Border Protection and FEMA. And so it's not that the federal government has not been assisting, it's just that this is their new strategy to let the governors take the lead. And there we see the president.
And he's sitting there and shaking hands with Governor Greg Abbott as he has touched down. And there are your live pictures, and we're not seeing him because the press is walking, but you saw the handshake there with Governor Greg Abbott as he has touched down in Kerrville. And now it looks like the media is running. That was a quick shot right there. So now we know he has touched down in Kerrville. Something else I wanted to point out was he made it very clear he did not want to come right away, as to not distract from the air searches immediately right after those floods. So he made it a point because he did not want to distract with that. And something else we wanted to point out was that now the airspace is completely clear because the president is here in town. So it does appear to be more of a search and recovery effort because we have not heard of any survivors in the last few days. So this is the sad reality of what has been going on as we hit these exactly 1 week mark. Here is another site. Let's head on over to Jordan Elder in Kerrville. She is with that pool, who is on the ground there with the president. And let's see what she has to say as that president has just touched down in Kerrville.
Hi, guys. This is Jordan Elder reporting from Kerrville. Right now, we are in the room where President Trump is going to be meeting with federal officials, local Texas officials, and then officials here in Kirk County. We have seen a lot of people walk in here so far that we are familiar with. Texas Land Commissioner Don Buckingham is in here. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller is in here. It's not filled at the moment, but there is a seat marked Attorney General in the crowd as well. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was in here a moment ago. We also have seen Congressman Tony Gonzalez. There are several Congress people here right now, as well as some of the local first responders we've seen in here too. We are seeing people in Coast Guard and Navy uniforms. We know that the president is going to be meeting with first responders when he gets here to this building. He's also going to be meeting with families we believe are from Camp Mystic. You're going to notice a lot of people wearing green in here today. That is the color of Camp Mystic. So a lot of the people in the crowd, you're going to notice that color quite frequently. Everyone right now appears to be leaving into the room next door. That's likely where the president will enter first before coming in here for this roundtable. There will be at least 20 to 30 chairs around this table for people to be speaking with the president. Right. So we'll keep you updated as we see more people come in and out.
Well, we literally got a quick, not even a 10-second shot of the president on the ground. He was shaking hands with Governor Greg Abbott as he touched down, and then literally that camera shot went to a running shot. You know what I'm talking about, that running shot when the cameraman's running. And so he is going to where he needs to go. Hopefully we get some more live pool camera shots up, and he will be with you shortly. Thank you, Jordan Elder, for that live picture of what you're showing us now, where he will be next, apparently, for his expected to meet with first responders about the tragedy and a little bit more. We'll learn more from those elected officials where you are right now. So now you're looking at a live picture. Again, I believe that's 39, Highway 39, where David Mendoza is, and that is where the motorcade is going to be going, and he's going to be greeted by all those people who are happy to see him. I don't know if we can pull David Mendoza up or not, and he can tell us a little bit more. That looks like it's grown. The people have grown basically and doubled in size, who are excited to see President Trump, or maybe get a glimpse of him in that motorcade.
Well, while we wait to see if we can make contact with David Mendoza, I'll tell you that they do keep the president on a very strict schedule.
Time schedule. Oh,
during
absolutely,
these visits. Yeah. Unclear how quickly he'll be on the ground here and then into the choppers for the tour of the devastated area, which would come next on the agenda. The room where Jordan Elder showed us for the roundtable, That is something that was scheduled tentatively for somewhere around 2 o'clock, 2:15 is when he'll be there with all the local dignitaries and state politicians, of course, to basically talk about the response and the cooperation and how it can be improved. But as we see here, people lining up, it's not similar to one of those campaign stops where everyone is jubilant, so to speak, because of the circumstances, because of there being a solemn and very sobering kind of feeling in the air. You can understand that, but it's obvious that they are glad that the president is paying attention to what's happening here and is engaged in the rescue efforts and what is now turning into efforts to comfort those who've lost people as well. The state has opened up a flooding emotional support line today. We got word of Texas Health and Human Services opening up a flood line, a helpline and support line for people to call. Those not only that have lost friends and loved ones, but people who have been involved in the search or have been out here and have been affected by the sheer magnitude of this tragedy.
And I think also you've hit your point so well. For a town of about 20 to 25,000 people, to have the president acknowledge what they went through, I think is such a beautiful thing for these people. This community that is so loving and so caring, that literally would give you the shirt off their back. That has, when we've gone into stores there, tell the first responders everything is on us. We're cooking out here, anybody who wants to eat. Just to have the president come to their city and acknowledge what has happened to them means so much to the city and to this community, that they just want to say thank you, just want to show we are here and thank you for hearing us and seeing what has happened to our community. I think they just want the president to say, hey, thank you for being here and knowing what's happened and feeling our pain with us. And that's why they stand out there, just saying, oh my gosh, you see us and you know what's going on. And thank you so much for being here. And that's exactly what he's doing. It's taken him days because he didn't want to interrupt with any of these, search and rescue efforts. But he says, I'm here, I'm acknowledging, I'm seeing. You may be a small town of 25,000 that swelled in population, but I am right here by your side. And it does look like his motorcade is coming through, possibly. It looks like all the flags there on those big SUVs. And it does look like they're going to get their opportunity to see or maybe get a glimpse of what's to come here.
All right, so at this point, we'll send it back to Jonathan and Mandy as we appear to be near the arrival here.
Okay, guys, thanks. We're going to send it over to David Mendoza because you're seeing this firsthand. I bet it's probably pretty loud out there, David.
Guys, hey, yeah, that was Donald Trump that just passed by. I got a quick glimpse of him as he passed by me in those big bulletproof windows of his. But we have a massive group of people out here on both sides of the road, eagerly awaiting him, screaming out, holding American flags, and waving to see him and his arrival in the city of Kerrville. A lot of community support out here for Donald Trump. A lot of flags, a lot of people happy to see him. They're glad he's coming and visiting this community after this absolute disaster that has happened. And that's it, folks. The barricade has moved. That's the last of it. And I'll send it back to you.
All right, David,
Thanks,
thank you for that. As they were talking about it a little bit ago, we've heard him release statements, video interviews as well, but this is more than just symbolic. This is the president on the ground here to be with the people in Kirk County, in the Hill Country, who've experienced this disaster, and I think that's what a lot of folks out here were asking as far as perhaps they can speak with him directly. We've done stories just yesterday. What is it that they'd like to hear from the president on his visit today? We know he's going to be visiting with first responders. He'll be getting that briefing momentarily, that is, with local elected officials. But then he will also be meeting with family members impacted by this tragedy. Perhaps there is where he will hear firsthand what it is that they need by way of federal assistance or any type of resources so desperately right now.
And we saw where Jordan is, and Jonathan and I couldn't hear what she was saying, so we can't speak to that. But there's this U-shaped setup, this table, and all of the press is to gather around while all of the officials are around for this roundtable, where they're going to have that hard conversation of what do we need to do to help Texas? There it is. You can see it's a U. The president likely will be in the very middle. There are place settings. So that's how many people are going to be involved in this. Likely local officials, county officials, state officials, the governor, John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, and the president. And it's just going to be a conversation of what do you need? How can we help? How can we fix this? How can we prevent this from happening to anyone else, to any other communities? And the conversation that we've seen a lot is, could having some type of alarm system in place make a difference? We've shared with you the story of one woman who on Sunday started a petition on change.org. And Sunday night it had 300 signatures. Yesterday it was up to 300,000. And all of these people saying, with as much as it costs, and let alone the lives that it costs, to set up a system like this, it will be worth it. And that's what we're starting to see a lot of people cry out for something like that and say, if we'd had 5 minutes, it could have made a difference. So as we've gone on this week, a lot of reporters have asked in these press conferences specific questions about the notifications and the alerts going out. And officials have been very careful to just say, right now we're focused on search and rescue. We're not going to deal with that right now. So very little answers have come out about answering those questions, those hard questions of, could any of this have been prevented? But inevitably, we will have to ask those questions. So,
well, eventually the conversation will shift. In the early days on of this tragedy, a lot of people wanted to know the second or third, fourth day in, hey, what went wrong? Who's to blame here? Elected officials did mention now is not the time to focus on that. It's the time to focus on the families, those who are still missing. But now we are 1 week out. Those questions have come up again, and some local elected leaders and officials have started to respond to that. We are anticipating that that will be at least some of the conversation that will be had at this roundtable discussion right now. We do want you to keep in mind, as we have been live with you since the president made his way to San Antonio, has now made his way here to Kerrville. While all of this is going on, as you can hear in the background, the beeping of that tractor trailer, perhaps the chainsaws, all the work still continues to go on as it has been. More than 1,000 volunteers are on the ground, first responders, countless first responders and volunteers. They are still hard at work all up and down the Guadalupe River right now. So while we are expecting to hear from the president, who gathers with local elected leaders and officials, the governor, Chief Nim Kidd, and the list goes on and on and on, all the work still continues right now. All the folks who need help, as far as that they've been directly impacted, they have gone to the FEMA center that has been set up, the disaster recovery center. All of that still, it happens. It's still going on 24/7.
And it's going to be for a long time. I mean, even we can see it here, just huge piles. There's mangled metal, canoes, kayaks, pieces of buildings. We saw a roof being pulled out, which you can't see in the shot behind us, but there's not an end in sight at this point as far as the cleanup for this. And it is a lot of the people who were local who are like, I can't get back to my life because there's a mess in my community and we all have to come together now. And to the point that Christina was making, there are people who have Airbnbs here who are just letting the first responders or volunteers or the groups that are here to help and provide aid and provide food and water and supplies. They're saying, you're here to help. You're here to help these Texans, this community. You stay for free. We'll take care of you. So we're seeing people even open their doors. There was a man that we heard from, who our reporter Taylor Whartonby has followed since last weekend. It was the gentleman that spoke at the Hunt store. Yesterday she talked with him, and he just has been very emotional because, like we're saying, this is such a small community. Everybody has been impacted, and a lot of people know somebody who was lost to this horrible tragedy. And he was saying it's not even that, but so many people are just bending over backwards to help their neighbors. He said, I've made friends throughout this process and people that I will never forget for helping me. I've tried to help, and it's just this sense of community.
Yeah. Speaking of, there's a lot of people who are anticipating the president's arrival. We spoke to some residents a bit earlier. Let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Oh man, this is a once in a lifetime, and seeing him come down here to this community after what happened, it speaks a lot. It's amazing seeing how everybody around here in Texas came and supported. I mean, what happened over the weekend was completely devastating, and seeing the support that everybody coming and pouring down. This town is full of just help, and it brings hope, you know, that he sees even the smallest people, you know. It's not just big cities. He comes down to the smallest ones and shows support to the people that really do need it.
The community coming together, unity, no matter which political affiliation, no matter who's in office, no matter who the elected official is.
Yeah.
It's about the entire community coming together, and that's what we know that Texas does, generally speaking. I was in Houston for Hurricane Harvey. We saw a lot of that, and this to me is a lot of the same, where you've got people, in this case, not just from around the immediate area, not just across the state and across the country, but you even had folks down from Mexico who had come up to help as part of these search and rescue, now what we know as search and recovery efforts.
Mm-hmm. And another thing to note is we're seeing someone walk around there. We don't know exactly what time this roundtable is supposed to start at this point. Some of the timeline has shifted a little bit. Things were running a little behind. The note that we have was that the roundtable was set to begin at 2:10. That he would first be meeting with first responders, the president, and get a briefing from the local officials and meet with family, and that the roundtable was to begin around 2:10. If they're still on that timeline, we don't know exactly for sure. But of course, we're staying with it. Let's go ahead and send it back in the studio to Jay.
Thank you, Mandy. And you had been talking a few moments ago about the need for some kind of early warning for people on the river. That has been a big topic of discussion. I talked to the sheriff of Kerr County back on Monday. He told me that he believes a siren system like they have in New Braunfels, like they have in Comfort, is probably what would make a difference. He believes that now. Such a system was discussed in Kerr County at their county commissioners meetings as far back as 2016. I reported earlier this week in going back through the minutes of those meetings, you could see that they anticipated. They said there's a potential for a huge disaster here because we have more summer camps than anybody else does, and we're in Flash Flood Alley. They knew kind of the danger that existed. I don't think they anticipated one of this magnitude, but they knew that that was a problem that they had to address. And there was one county commissioner, he's no longer on the commission anymore, but he was pushing the idea of alarm systems. He got some pushback on that because people were concerned that these sirens, these alarms would go off in the middle of the night. That is something that happens, but of course you have to weigh the cost of putting up with perhaps some inconvenience at first until you get all the kinks worked out of a system like that. But in Comfort, I went there a couple of days ago. The residents there are very happy that the local volunteer fire department in Comfort kind of converted their sirens that they use for tornadoes to also sound for flooding. And for the first time, one of those went off and started blaring on Friday morning when the rain was really hard. And in Comfort, they're further away from the Guadalupe River, but they are right there on Cypress Creek, which is a big tributary leading into the Guadalupe there. So the downtown area there in Comfort is low-lying, and they're subject to flooding as well. So they've got that alarm system, that siren system there. It's a much bigger siren system that they have in New Braunfels. We went and shot some video of those sirens that are down near the areas that are near local rivers, used by tubers, campers, RVers. And they've got 8 stations there lining the rivers there in New Braunfels. And they paid back in 2011 something like $280,000 to install all 8 of those sirens. And what's key with their system is that they actually have an app where they can test just off the phone to make sure that the sirens are working, obviously fire them to make them work in the case of an emergency. But something we keep coming back to is that no matter what the alarm system or the notification system is, it's not automatic. It's got to be triggered by someone who's in charge. And so that's the case in Comfort, and that is the case in New Braunfels. And so, everyone has to be on alert, so to speak, and a key person or people have to be at the switch. to be able to make sure that these notification systems go off. That was the case in Kerr County, where they have to initiate sending out, all they have right now are the cell phone alerts through their code red system. And no one sent those out apparently until later in the morning, after much of the death and destruction had happened, even though we've heard the recording of the one volunteer firefighter calling for a code red to be sent out around 4:22 in the morning. And so all of these issues have to be worked through on a state and local level. The legislature will discuss providing money to pay for notification systems like the siren systems that I've been talking about. The governor said that they would talk specifically about those type of systems with sirens and alarms for different counties and cities in Texas that are vulnerable, and there certainly are a lot of them, but Kerrville obviously goes to the top of the list after this horrible tragedy. And everyone that I've talked to, they do feel that a siren system would be something that they would support. We've taken online polls here at News 4 and asked people whether they thought that was a good idea. As I mentioned, I talked to the sheriff himself. There was a previous sheriff who was there in Kerr County in 2016 in that time frame, and I spoke to him on the phone earlier this week. He didn't want to do an on-camera interview because he said he didn't want to detract from the victims of this tragedy and the rescue operations that are ongoing. But he's the one, this former sheriff whose name was Heyerholzer, he said, go back and check what I said in the minutes back in 2016 when he supported that system. All right, so here we see President Trump and Melania Trump, and obviously talking to a first responder there. There's Nim Kidd, who heads up the Department of Emergency Management here in Texas, and they are talking about obviously the response and the ongoing work that is going on here.
And you can see all the damage there. Looks like Kerrville Fire Department fire truck right there. And that is, you just look at the wide shot there, you can see all of the damage. As he is listening, it looks like it might be the Kerrville fire chief, possibly.
And they've got a big card there that's been signed.
The governor's there too, look at that.
No doubt thank yous from the community and whatnot, and also a topographical kind of a map for them.
Yeah. So I don't know that we're going to get any audio from that, but it is a good understanding from that. Pulled up audio, didn't look like we were getting any audio.
They're probably getting a kind of a preview of where they're going to be flying and where the disaster is, and kind of getting them oriented before their aerial tour. That would be my guess here. Hard to tell exactly what they're saying from this distance.
Yeah, but a lot of damage to cover.
Yeah, just to chime in. Yeah, just to chime in right now, as we had talked about, some 200-mile stretch of the Guadalupe River is what they're going to be looking at right now, assessing where it is likely that they're going to be going right now. So the president there, along with the First Lady, along with Governor Greg Abbott, Kerr County leaders, and then just off to the right there was going to be the Texas Division of Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd. But as you had talked about, in that wide shot, you get the scope of the devastation and the pile of debris some 2 times, if not 3 times higher than that fire truck. And I think that really does give you a sense of what it is that they are up against out there right now.
Ground and you see it, and it goes over your head. You know, Melania and Trump and Donald Trump are 6 feet, if not 6 feet plus, and so you can see just how much higher it is than them, and that gives you a sense, as you've mentioned, Jonathan, just how tall and high that is. Those trees, hundreds of years old, and it just simply towers over them. In the wake of all of this tragedy and storm damage. So as he shows him that map, is what we're presuming, it will no doubt give them a sense of what they'll be looking at when they go up high for their aerial shots and tour of what they will be looking at. And it may be possibly Camp Mystic, as we discussed earlier, and just get that tour. And then in between them, Governor Greg Abbott, who has gotten an aerial tour a few days prior to that, and gotten a good sense himself firsthand of what his state went through days prior. In fact, 1 week ago today, that claimed the lives of 96 people in the small town of Kerrville, just a town of 25,000 people that doubled in size, as we found out from a city council member, for the 4th of July celebration. And sadly, dozens of children's lives lost as a result of these floods, and a flooding system that we discussed that just simply was just not in place for a warning to let anybody know in advance that that they needed to leave or leave in time.
So they're being prepared, I think, for their aerial review of the area, and we've been told that the search area for searchers is about 80 miles of river, looking for people to recover at this point. And undoubtedly they will be looking at Hunt and Ingram in the areas that were hard hit. Our Jordan Elder had been out there among our other reporters and getting unforgettable images. They will see things like toppled cars, trees. Something that really struck me was just how some of the trees just had the bark taken off of them and toppled over. And they will see bare foundations where cabins and homes once were, and the many piles of debris that are still there. And of course, we've been reporting on how searchers have been asking that people not clear the piles on their own or burn them, but wait for specially trained crews to go look and make sure that they go through those piles in the proper way to fulfill their search, and then they'll have them removed at some point in the future. But all of this taking place while search efforts on the ground continue, and they can be undisturbed while the president and other dignitaries are able to get that view from the air.
It was really sad to hear some of the stories I heard down there. But I did hear from a gentleman 2 days ago. I'm getting my days a little confused. He came from Upton County, from McNamee, which I'd never heard of, 52 miles south of Odessa. He came out there with a lot of equipment. He was very proud. He was a county commissioner, and he told me that he was happy to bring the equipment, happy to help in any way he could. And he and his crews, they helped build a dam so that the water wouldn't continue to flood. He wanted to redirect the water so that it looked more like a river, and he wanted the river to flow properly so that everything could move in the right direction, because at the end of that river there was a whole bunch of smashed cars, and they wanted to be able to, with their big equipment, to get all of those cars out of the way and to properly move them respectfully, because as you mentioned, they were going to have to look through those cars thoroughly, because sadly the day before, when they helped get some piles and brushes by hand first, unfortunately they found the body of a baby. And he said it was not their job to do anything with that except to help when they were done with the piles, to help move those piles, but they were going to do all of that by hand first. So now they're shaking hands, and now they'll move forward, I guess, with their tour. But again, this is a painstaking task for everyone involved, and that's what they're trying to do as they shake hands with the governor, with everyone taking his hat, very Texas-like, very gentlemanly, as they walk through these piles and do what they need to do to get their tour started here in Kerr County and the rest of Kerrville, and look through these flood-torn areas.
I know that I had a similar experience just the other day when doing a live report for News 4 from the edge of the river. I was approached by a man who was down from Dallas. He was a retired search and rescue worker who had worked in Kerr County at one point, and he had taken it upon himself. He had been notified, of course, from friends who still work in emergency services down in Kerrville, and he came down with his boat, and he was helping in the search at that point. Because early on it was helicopters, and it kind of transitioned into those boat crews that were helping out quite a bit on the river, and then there has been the grid search that's been going on painstakingly with people walking with dogs. And we're joined again by Jonathan and Mandy, who are on the ground there in Ingram for this trip.
Yes. Yes, we are at Howdy's restaurant here, which is also owned by the folks who own the Blue Oak RV campground, which we have been out here, I think, just about every day. since Friday. Destiny was out here and everything was just underwater, including, I believe, where we're standing right now. And it's incredible how much has been cleared and how much damage there still is. But of course, we're seeing the Kerrville Fire Department there. I was actually looking through my notes because since Friday, we've had almost regular updates. At first, it was twice a day from our local and our state officials. Then it moved to once a day, but I was trying to find something specific from the Kerrville Fire Department because we've heard from a lot of these folks and it's just been, you've seen the emotion on their faces. We've heard it in their voices. You know, that gentleman there speaking to the president, the first lady, and Governor Abbott. And you just can't imagine what he's saying to try to get across the level of mourning, the level of sadness,
the level of loss, destruction,
the loss,
all here in our community.
And it's, we haven't slept. Everybody in this community that we've heard from knows somebody who's lost so much, whether it's been their home or their lives, and something that just swept through in the middle of the night and what was supposed to be a day of celebration.
What you're looking at right now is going to be the Kirk County Sheriff, as I understand it, along with the governor, the president, and the first lady. They had just met with some of the other city leaders there. We know Chief Nim Kidd is off to the side. As we'd imagine, they're getting briefed on what it is that they can expect to see right now up and down the Guadalupe, and much of what it is that we see behind us here. We can tell you that when we arrived out here, we had seen at least a half a dozen to a dozen search and recovery crews out here. They've since shifted, made a shift change, if you will, with more folks coming in, as you see the president there meeting more local and state officials. But shift change out here has happened. But the one thing that does remain common is that it doesn't stop. And even though this presidential visit is taking place, we do still have folks who are hard at work out here. And this image that you see behind us here of all of these toppled trees, this is just one section of many, many miles up and down the Guadalupe River in which they're searching through right now to hopefully, because again, priority number one remains to be the people, finding the people who are still missing. That number stands at 161, could possibly be more than that.
And this is a lot better than it looked last Friday, last Saturday. Because there were cars, there were RVs, things were upended. The owner of this campground, when she talked about when I woke up in the morning, and this is hard to hear, but we've heard it over and over as people have recounted surviving this horrifying ordeal. She said there were lights everywhere. It was vehicles that had been swept away and the cars were honking. And you could just hear people screaming, people who had been swept away and were trying to figure out how they could save themselves. And we've heard stories of people who have just tried to swim. They were swimming for their lives, or they grabbed onto a piece of metal. We heard a story from a man who helped a young girl who she survived 12 miles being swept down the river and finally clung onto a tree and sat there for hours. And she was bumped and bruised and cut. But just the remarkable stories of survival, no doubt what the president, the first lady will be hearing, along with Governor Greg Abbott and the president now.
And what we're looking at right now, at least for the backdrop there, in addition to everybody gathering there with the president, is going to be tires from an overturned car, possibly an ATV. We can't make it out just yet, but we do know that those are tires. Obviously, that's an automobile of some sort, and that gives you a sense just how high it is behind them, the magnitude and scope of what it is that search crews are having to sift through right now. As they mentioned, they do that slow and methodical process of recovery.
And each of these piles, to note too, they're not using machines on if they haven't already gone through it and cleared it. They're having to go in by hand because they don't know what they're going to find, because they're looking for the victims. They're trying to recover people. And in these debris piles, when we had vehicles that were swept away and crushed, and sadly there were victims inside of it, they can't just go in with machines and clear them. But we heard from some of the crews yesterday who were saying, we start at 8:30 in the morning. This is Texas. They're running into things like finding rattlesnakes and other threats from the river. There are sharp pieces of metal. There are just a number of hazards that they're dealing with. And then they're going to 430. And once they go section by section through the debris, they mark it as having cleared it. And then whoever with the property is able to go in and actually clear it once it's been checked by search and rescue crew, in the event that there are victims in those piles of debris.
And again, what you're looking at right now, what you're looking at right now, again, is the president meeting with some of the first responders and search and recovery crews. We had heard stories, one such of a Coast Guard who had rescued some 160 kids from Camp Mystic.
Yeah.
The list of things that the president will be doing after meeting with the folks there right now on the ground is he will also be meeting with some of the families. He will be going to take part in this roundtable discussion. He will also be getting an aerial tour of what it is that he's seeing there on the map that was just shown to him a short time ago. And we are anticipating, we're not certain, but we are anticipating possibly to hear from the president at that roundtable discussion, perhaps when we'll get more insight into what it is that can be done to, again, prevent something like this and get the help that they need right now and finding out what it is specifically that they do need.
And the roundtable was scheduled for 2:10. We don't know if that's going to be moved. It's possible that it could be. We don't know how tight of a schedule he's on. We know he's headed to New Jersey this evening. But they got here a little bit later than they were planning to, I think at least 30 minutes. But this is going to continue. That roundtable was set for 2:10, so we're not sure what spots the president and first lady are stopping at, who else they're meeting, but our crews are there for the duration of this.
And again, we do want to remind you, if perhaps you are one of the families that are impacted out here by all of this devastation, there is assistance out there. There are resources. If you are still missing a person, that number that's scrolling at the bottom is the number you're being urged to call. And there again, there's a reunification center that has been set up. But yeah, there are numbers, there are resources, and we've compiled that list for you right now on our website. As we've been on this story from the very beginning, this does mark 1 week since this tragedy unfolded at some 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. But the work to find those that are still missing is underway as the president is meeting with some of those who have taken part in some of those efforts.
It's just unbelievable to think that this was a campground full of happiness and excitement ahead of the 4th of July holiday, and then everything changed in a matter of an hour. And this is where we are today. We know it's called Flash Flood Alley and that this is a particular dangerous river, but you know, you just hear it over and over. I never imagined it would be like this. And even from where I'm standing here, because we talk about the cleanup efforts and the volunteers, I can see 4 heavy construction equipment, I don't know, are those bulldozers? Scooping up debris and metal. And it's just the amount of work that it's going to take for this community to get back to quote unquote normal, which I think most people would say we're never going to be normal. Listening to some of those officials yesterday, they were saying the look of this river, you know, some people may say, oh, well, this is where you need to search at this fork. That fork's not there anymore. The river looks completely different because you had massive, heavy things carving new paths. So the river and how it was is no longer. It looks different. Where there was an island before, there may no longer be. There may be new islands. It's different.
Yeah, the landscape, at least in this immediate area as it pertains to the Guadalupe, has changed in some forms, and that's what the search and recovery crews had mentioned that they are also up against, in addition to those massive piles of debris, as you see there, homes and campsites, I mean, just obliterated, but they're also up against the changing landscape of the river as they go to conduct some of those searches. There are places that they're focusing on right now, but you know, that was there at the park where 4th of July celebration was set up. It looks completely different right now. But I will say at the same time, there are signs of hope when we see all of these volunteers and folks from other parts that are here. And then you also see the long line of the memorial that we took a shot of just not too long ago that is growing as well, with the flowers and the pictures and candles and American flags. there's a lot to be said for the community coming together right now. And we say that often, but that is the case out here. And we see it firsthand with all of these first responders out here, because right now that's what we have. We have to rely on one another. We have to have hope that it'll take some time to rebuild and to recover. But that right there is an example of exactly what they're doing.
They're rolling up their sleeves and they're saying, we're going to get it done. We're doing it. We're helping our neighbors. We're helping our community. We are Texans. We're Texas strong. We're going to do it. And there's something that I was just thinking of when we're talking about hope. Do you remember on Saturday, or was it Friday? These days are running together for us, probably like they are for some of you. But it was such a hard day. And we started to see the campers from Camp Mystic getting off of helicopters. And we were just floored with excitement because it was the first good news that we were able to bring you. I have chills across my body right now just thinking about it, watching these girls get off of these helicopters and then run. And it was just several, and then we started seeing the bus loads. And it was like, this is the first good news that we've seen. Okay, I know we've got the group for the Roundtable now.
Yeah, it's going to be dignitaries that are coming into the room right now. That's Senator Ted Cruz alongside is going to be John Cornyn there. Let's go ahead and toss it out to Jordan Elder, who's standing by, who's also in the room. Jordan?
Hi, guys. Yeah, activity really just picked up in this room. We're gearing up for the roundtable with President Trump and then federal, state, and local leaders. Senator Ted Cruz just walked in.
I don't know.
We know that he was with the president. I want to try to kind of take you through what this room looks like right now. On the left-hand side, there's a bunch of maps of the Guadalupe River. On the right side, it is a map of the flooding event for these leaders to go to. We're expecting the president to sit in the middle of this horseshoe. You're going to see a lot of people in this room wearing either green shirts or green ribbons, and that is because green is the color of Camp Mystic. We aren't sure at this time if the family members potentially from Camp Mystic are going to be part of this roundtable, but we do know that they're being honored here in that way. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was in the room just a bit ago. This is her second trip out here to Kerrville. She did a presser with Governor Abbott earlier in the week, I believe in this same building. So she has not come back out yet, but we know that she's here. There are also several members of Congress that represent Texas in the room here today. Tony Gonzalez is here, Ronnie Jackson, Keith Self, Pete Flores, Dan Crenshaw. They're all in the room. Also, we're seeing a lot of Kerrville County officials, too. Their county commissioners. The Kerrville city mayor is here, Joe Herring. He just walked in. There are several members of their police force here as well. And then for the state agencies, we have a lot of agency leaders here today. Land Commissioner Don Buckingham is here, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, DPS Director Freeman Martin, Major General Thomas Seltzer with the Texas National Guard. There was a chair that was marked Attorney General, but that piece of paper has now been removed. So we are watching as everyone comes in. Again, the president is expected here in just a little bit for a roundtable, talking about how the disaster response has been going so far and then where we go from here. So there are a bunch of maps in here that they can refer to if needed. And there's 20 to 30 chairs around this table. This is expected to be a larger roundtable event, and then there's chairs surrounding that as well for people to listen and see. We're going to send it back to you guys. We'll keep you updated on when we see the president and first lady enter.
All right, Jordan, thanks a lot for that. So right now you are seeing all the state and local leaders. They're gathering at what will be a roundtable discussion. In the meantime, on the other side of town right now, the president, along with the first lady, are still meeting with first responders and search and recovery crews, along with other dignitaries.
Yeah, we saw the big Kerrville Fire Department truck was the backdrop. He was meeting with the sheriff. We're not sure where the next stop is or if they're headed right to where this roundtable is happening. But I think it says a lot when you have this group of people who are instrumental in running our country here in this town that has been so devastated, and saying, we see you, we hear you, we're going to listen to what you're going through. This is horrible, it's unprecedented, and we're going to listen and we're going to help. And that is the message that they're sending.
As far as priorities are concerned, priority number one still remains to be finding those who are missing. Some of the other priorities, you don't have to list them in order, but they will be getting resources, the road to recover, the rebuilding, but then also in that list of priorities that will likely be discussed as we continue to talk about it, because ultimately, if there is somebody or some group that needs to be held accountable, we will be asking those questions. We need to find out what, if anything, was missed that could have perhaps prevented the tragedy the way that it unfolded. And if there is, what needs to be done? We anticipate that that will likely be discussed here in this roundtable discussion, despite it being, you know, the president and on the federal level, and this is something local here and on the state level.
Well, and we see with disasters, eventually a number will come out. This disaster, this tragic flash flooding in the Texas Hill Country caused X number of dollars of damage. Millions, billions, we have no idea what that number is going to be. It's going to be roads, it's going to be bridges. There are entire government buildings that are gone, the Hunt Post Office for one, and that's not even including the personal damage, the homes lost, the vehicles lost. When you talk about how much has been lost without taking into account the lives, because not one life is ever worth being lost in this way, they are going to look at what can we do to prevent this from ever happening again. And if you ask a lot of people, it's we need sirens, we need warning sirens. Could it have made a difference? Well, hindsight's 20/20. Could it make a difference next time? Well, a lot of people seem to think so, and hopefully there's not a next time. But like we said, this is Flash Flood Alley.
To give you again a little bit of perspective when it comes to the numbers, right now the death toll still stands at the same at 96 confirmed dead here in Kirk County. That includes 60 adults, 36 children, still 161 missing though in this immediate area. Statewide, there's been 120 people who were killed in this disaster. For perspective, we're being told that that is more death compared to Hurricane Harvey. Of course, you never want to compare tragedy to tragedy, but again, that gives you a sense of what it is that we are out here dealing with. On a positive note, we can tell you that since July 4th, the Texas Game Wardens made 444 rescues. Sadly, though, they did recover 30 bodies as well. But again, that speaks to the amount of work that's underway right now.
And that's a good point. That's just the Texas Game Wardens. There are other groups. The number that we had, I think, over Friday night was 850 some rescues, mostly by helicopter, mostly by people who were in trees, who rode out, were lucky enough, they were one of the lucky ones, they were able to grab onto a branch or a stump or a limb, and they saved their own lives from being swept away. As we know, not everyone was that fortunate.
If you're joining us now, we are watching and awaiting President Trump to arrive to this roundtable. We have been on since he landed in San Antonio just before noon, and from San Antonio, he was at Kelly Airfield, Lackland, made his way by way of Marine One here to the Kerrville area, where he has since landed. A motorcade has taken him to a place where he met up. He was there with the governor. He met up with local and state leaders, kind of assessing some of the damage, at least by way of a map. From there, he's getting kind of a blueprint of what it is that they're going to do from here. We anticipate him to come to this roundtable discussion next. Thereafter, likely take an aerial tour of this particular area. We do want to go ahead and send things back over to Jay and Christina for a little bit more. Guys?
Well, we thank you for that information. We're looking at the same shot as you are of that room where they're going to have the roundtable with state and local officials. A big topic will be cooperation with the federal government and getting help quickly on the ground when these disasters happen. How did it work here? How should it work in the future? And there's always a political element to these discussions because every administration has a different way of approaching disaster response. And President Trump's has been to shrink federal agencies. He wants the states and the governors to play a bigger role in the disaster response and to really take the lead and call the shots and ask for specific help in certain areas as they go along from the federal government. And they say that FEMA and other agencies will then respond at that time and give them what they need. But from the other perspective, opponents of the president's strategy are saying that cutting agencies like FEMA, cutting their budgets, putting in place certain requirements that might slow things down when it comes to response in their view. And so that's being debated right now, certainly in Washington, and it's also going to be something that's discussed here. The state leaders that I've talked to at the news conferences, I've always took the opportunity to pull them aside afterwards and ask them if there was really something that they needed. They've told us, reporters, that they've gotten everything they needed from the very early stages of this process. But there certainly are published reports coming out about what's going on at FEMA and whether they are still have the resources under President Trump that they have always traditionally had, and whether that is going to hamper their ability to help the states.
Yeah, and I was actually at the first press conference when all of this happened, and I will say the state did step up, and is what, to your point, what Donald Trump was saying wanted to happen. And when we talked to these local officials on day one, they said when they contacted the state, Governor Greg Abbott said yes to whatever it was that you wanted, whatever assistance and guidance you needed. The answer was yes. Before they could even finish their sentence, the answer was yes to whatever they needed. And this was before we even knew how many deaths there were, how many lives lost there were. So they were getting what they needed. They were getting the funds, and they were getting the resources they needed. And it was throughout the state. And they were surprised at how much that they were receiving from different parts of the state. So Governor Greg Abbott, in this situation, for this state in particular, because we have the massive resources that we do in Texas, really did step up to the plate. Now, I don't know if that would be the case in every other state when we come to smaller states, but Texas does seem to find a way always to step up to the plate, and obviously a good friend of Donald Trump. I don't know if it would be that way in every other state, and if it's a smaller economy, if they would have those kind of resources like we do here in Texas.
Well, they certainly have a good working relationship.
Sure.
I know that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem at the first news conference was talking about how Nim Kidd, who runs the Texas Department of Emergency Management, he used to be here in Bexar County.
He was our guy. We stole him. The White House, or Governor Abbott stole him from Bexar County, actually.
Yeah, and she said that he had a very good reputation around the country as
Sure.
far as being able to come into these situations and quickly get a handle on what was needed in terms of searching or recovery, rescue, and to also quickly get the request into the federal government. So it was the next day at that Saturday news conference when Kristi Noem was here that she made comments that they communicated they needed helicopters with thermal imaging to search at night. We've got those for them. The Coast Guard was already engaged at that point. And also a lot of Customs and Border Protection. We think of them in terms of immigration duties all the time, but the reality is they have a lot of equipment and a lot of training to help out in situations like this. And so there were teams from several federal agencies that were quickly on the ground and working. And to as we look at the big memorial that has been placed there in the past few days, we know that Mandy was talking about a big topic of conversation at this roundtable is going to be going forward, what kind of notification systems make the most sense. And right now, we've all learned a lot about what notification systems there are out there for emergencies. We don't think about them until we need them. But the National Weather Service, of course, has the phone alerts that come to us. And we've talked to many people who receive those, as we've been told that, along with Senator John Cornyn, that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is there. He's another one of the state officials who's been in Kerr County from the beginning. But the National Weather Service puts out these alerts on your phone, and the reality of it is that they're kind of like Amber Alerts, in that if it's not something that you interpret as directly affecting you right away, you can get to the point where you disregard them, especially if they're coming out one after the other. We've heard people say that.
They often ignore them, and sometimes people consider them a deterrent. The more you hear them or see them, they can often act as a deterrent for people, and that's often very sad. Or sometimes people go into their settings and turn them off, because sometimes, depending on the time of day, it wakes you up and it's not very effective. And you can ask meteorologists sometimes. They say they're just not as effective as they should be. But that can be tragic for people, especially in a situation like this.
So we may end up seeing them go to some kind of a siren or alarm system like they have in other communities.
Right.
Now, we do have our Jordan Elder, who is standing by in that very room where the roundtable is going to take place. So we want to see if Jordan is able to tell us a little bit about what's happening right now. Jordan.
Hi, Jay. Yep, it is getting busy in here. We have seen a lot of Congress people come in. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has just re-entered the room. She was actually here in Kerrville earlier this week. She did a press conference with Governor Abbott. She's making her way up to the table now. There are several members of Congress here, including Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Ronnie Jackson, Keith Self, Pete Flores, Dan Crenshaw. Senators Cruz and Cornyn just walked in a few minutes ago. So the layout of this room, there are maps on the left and the right side of the Guadalupe River so that officials can refer to those if they need to. We are starting to see the name tags on this table to know more of who is going to be a part of this. And it is everybody from federal to state to local officials. Obviously, the senators and the congressmen are going to be part of it. Texas National Guard Major General Thomas Seltzer, Rob Kelly, who's the county judge here in Kerr County, is going to be part of this. The Texas Game Warden, the Texas Chief Medical Officer. There's a sign out for Attorney General Ken Paxton as well. John Buckingham is here. She's the Texas Land Commissioner. Right now, everybody's just kind of mingling, waiting for things to start. It does look like the pool press is arriving, which to us is a signal that this could be starting soon. So the pool is coming in right now. They're going to get set up, and then that's when we will likely see the president enter.
All right. And so again,
this is going to kick off.
All right. And it does look like you're seeing there a shot of Ted Cruz. And to your left there, that is the memorial that has been set up for the 96 people who sadly lost their lives in Kerr County alone. And you can see so many people visiting that site. Still, 161 people remain unaccounted for from these devastating floods that happened 1 week ago today. And on your right, this is where we expect to see the president. You can see all the law enforcement stepping up here, and we have heard of local officials, local officials here from the city of Kerr County, and then other state officials that are there. And looks like people are taking their seats as we await the president's arrival there to your right.
In addition to meeting with these local leaders who are heading up the search and other rescue activity, the president is going to meet, we're told, with some victims' families. And that is something that is always special that the presidents are able to do on these types of visits. And we're told that that's something that Donald Trump, for as brash as he can be when he's engaging with political opponents, that he does have a skill of really connecting with people in these disaster zones, helping to listen to them and comfort them, and that is part of the chief executive's job that they do on these trips.
And while we await this, again to your left, it's the memorial of the 96 people who lost their lives in Kerr County. To your right, we're waiting the president's arrival. We will send it on back to Jonathan Martinez and Mandy Noel, who are in Ingram at the Blue Oak Resort. Where things have been leveled there, and the Guadalupe River is behind them. What can you tell us out from where your vantage point is?
Well, I think a week ago, this was very much a flood zone that was still underwater, and behind us, the river is pretty far away. It's about a football field away. It's just unbelievable to look at these trees and see how high the water was. And it's just destruction. And this is not anywhere near as bad as it was a week ago.
Well, you see right now the water as it flows, much different story. But we can tell you that the cleanup efforts and recoveries does go on. In fact, I'll hold on just a little bit to see. You see a convoy of roughly about a half a dozen to a dozen or so.
Oh, yeah.
You've got trailers with ATVs. In fact, I'll hold and keep talking, and we can keep the shot up behind us. Now probably a dozen or so, and to the tail end there's DPS, but you've got big ATVs, you've got SUVs, You've got search and recovery crews on the backside there. In
There's
fact,
some
they're
four-wheelers.
pulling off to the side there to be setting up camp, if you will, so they can continue to do that arduous process of search and recovery right now. This is just one spot of many, many miles down the Guadalupe. It does look like they're taking a detour off of the road there, but
they've
hopefully
got a
we'll be able to
boat
show
over
you that.
there too, so it looks like they're setting the boat in. We know the way that they explained it is you can see which areas we have gone through to look to recover victims and bodies because we flag it or we spray paint it. And I know you can see it. There's a building over there with an orange X that's been spray painted on it, which indicates they have been in there. It is clear. But the debris piles, and this is why they're asking for people who want to come out and help and volunteer on their own, as I've had, and I'm sure you had. So many people on social media have reached out to me. What do you think I can do to help? How can I help? At first they were saying, please don't come. They're now saying that's so helpful, but you have to check in before you do so, because you need to make sure that, number one, we have you documented, and that if anything happens, we're aware that you're here. Number two, we don't want you wasting your time in searching something that's possibly already been searched. We know where we need to send you. So apparently there's somewhere out here that this dedicated group is, there's a boat and there's, like we said, ATVs, there's some four-wheelers. So they may be putting that in the water.
We'll pan
I'm
off
not
to the
sure.
side there, but
Okay,
we will be
yeah.
mindful. We can tell you that we had seen folks that were clearing debris, but this is a little bit of a different scene now. We do see some DPS crews there, along with boats and ATVs. If you see off there in the distance, a little bit of a different scene from what we've seen here all this afternoon. We've been out here for the better part of 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
But again, that is going to be a similar sight that you see up and down the river. But this, again, is a little bit different from us, and perhaps could be the reason we had heard earlier someone asking to clear this particular area. It could be because there was going to be a convoy of, as we see it now, crews that were coming out here along with boats, along with ATVs. There's a gentleman walking up right now with the chainsaw. Why specifically they are out here right now versus other reasons, we're not sure. We're still trying to find out.
And there's just one part that I know that I can see that they've gone in and cleared because there's the X on it. All of these other debris piles behind us, I didn't, and I was walking around them earlier. I don't know if they've been cleared or not, so it's possible that's what they're coming to look in. But it highlights the point, I think, that they're going section by section. And guys, they have 80 miles to cover. A mile's a huge distance as it is to be doing something like this. There are 80 miles along the river that they are having to go and search by hand. So maybe perhaps this is just a put-in point. Perhaps they're going to be looking at one of these piles of debris. I guess
this speaks to what we've been talking about all this time, though. While there's a presidential visit taking place right now, and while there are a lot of city, state, local leaders that are there at that roundtable discussion, this, in the meantime, is what's taking place on the other side of the city. Again, we're in Ingram. The president and those dignitaries are in Kerrville. But while that visit takes place, in fact, there you go on your screen, you can see Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
And that's Secretary Noem as well.
That's taking place right now, but the search and recovery efforts do not stop. They go on as they have now for 7 days straight, because again, 7 days ago at this time, a much, much different scene out here. A lot of the debris, well, in this immediate area has been clear, but that's not necessarily the case up and down the river. But they are still working. They are working round the clock, and that was something that we were guaranteed would not stop regardless day or night, rain or shine. They were going to be out here, and they do still remain out here.
One of the questions that the reporters posed to some of the local officials yesterday who were speaking about their specific zone was, what about when the president comes? Are we going to have to pause everything? And he goes, we're not going to stop. When the president's here, we're still going out. We're getting here at 8:30 in the morning. We're going until 4:30. And obviously that is the case behind us. But we weren't sure if the helicopters would still be up. I haven't seen any because the president was flying. And so that's a little bit more of a tricky question, and we don't know. But they are still out here looking. Yeah,
we had heard that there was going to be a TRF, a temporary restricted, or TFR fly zone. Basically, you can't fly in the area because the president was going to be in town. However, as we understood it to be, that wasn't going to hamper or hinder any of the search and recovery efforts that were taking place in here. Worth noting on that point, as well as we had talked about, we had heard from Ingram just yesterday talking about when it comes to airspace, we had mentioned it earlier, we will repeat it again, because even though some of this debris is being cleared out here and folks want to get out here and see for themselves, You're not encouraged to do that. And for folks who are drone enthusiasts, also do not put drones in the air. In fact, all drones in this area, if you're not first responders or rescue crews, you're not going to be allowed to do it. It's against the law. They had said that they already had one instance on Tuesday where a drone had hit a chopper, and for that reason, they're reminding folks, hey, no drones in this area. Right now, the people that need to be out here are out here doing their work.
Yeah.
So land the drones right now. We got to keep it safe for everybody out here who's doing those search and recovery efforts.
And they said they caught 3 people yesterday, and they said, did they get a fine? He said the 3 we talked to today, we just told them to move along, and they brought it down and went away. But he was pretty sure the guy that was operating the drone that hit the helicopter probably got a pretty big fine. The other risk is that you're putting lives in danger. There are people in the helicopters. If one of those drones runs into the blades, it could cause a crash, and that is the last thing anybody wants to see, that we want to happen. I wish that I'd walked to our right. There is so much activity happening over there. There are massive dumpsters where debris is being loaded into. There's at least 4 or 5 pieces of heavy equipment scooping all that debris up. And yeah, I'm really interested in what these folks here who have moved in with the boat and the ATVs and the 4-wheelers, what they're specifically doing.
There's a particular reason that they're here. We will find out momentarily. Perhaps our producer will all find out together. But it goes without saying, the images that you're seeing off to the left there is of all the destruction. Once we are able and are allowed to, we will likely put up your South Texas Ford dealer Sky 4 to go over the area as well, to not only survey the damage, but compare it to where it was days after this happened when we were allowed to fly. That's something else that we as a news organization had to keep in mind. We needed to be able to do so when we could safely do so. We did go up, I think day 2 or day 3 after the tragedy. I don't recall if we've been up just yet, but we also we'll go up and we'll get a better vantage point of it as well. And keep in mind, that's likely going to be the same vantage point that the president will get following this roundtable discussion in that live shot that you're seeing off to the left of your screen right there.
Yeah, and Jordan is there. She was saying there's 20 to 30 seats set up. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem is there. Dan Crenshaw is there. Ted Cruz is there. John Cornyn, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and of course the president and first lady are there as well. So, and it's also a lot of the city of Kerrville officials. She mentioned the mayor, who we've heard so much from him, and he has gotten emotional just about every day, saying this is just an unbelievable tragedy for this community. We're such a small community, and we're all affected by this.
Rightfully so. And, emotions have run high since the very beginning, as they continue to run high. And on the flip side, as we had mentioned, this presidential visit, it means a lot to the folks who are here, who perhaps, not to say they feel alone, because you've seen the community come out, but this is a show of support from the White House, from the administration, and that is why you have so many dignitaries here today to talk about what it is that took place here and the fact that they are here for this community. And one of the things I think that was touching and moving by the Kerrville mayor, as he had mentioned before, the national media has descended into Kerrville and the Hill Country the same as the local media has, but once the debris and the story has kind of moved on, for us, this story will not go anywhere. We will be covering this story for weeks, months, and years to come. And that was one of the points that the Kerrville mayor, I believe, at one point had made mention, that once crews have moved out when it comes to news, the story is still here, and we're going to be here with you every step of the way to cover it, because there's a lot of stories to be told of survival, sadly of victims, the recovery, the rebuilding, the resources that are needed, and a long list of other things.
And the hours after this was happening, when we were just on air constantly and we were just trying to really grasp this huge severity of what was happening, this is the 4th of July. We're supposed to be celebrating our independence. A year from now, this is still going to be the story. We're never going to put anybody in this community in a situation where they're like, well, where are you now? We still need help. We're always going to be that ear for you.
Well, the scope of it all, I think very early on, when we knew that this was going to be a tragedy, we just didn't know to what extent. And if you'll remember, as you walked this with us from the very beginning, we wanted to know how many people were missing, and they couldn't tell us. They couldn't put a number on that because they themselves did not know. And then sadly, that death toll had climbed from day 1 to day 2. and unfortunately it doubled, in some cases tripled. But then that one number that still existed that we didn't hear about was the number of missing. And the reason for that was because the Hill Country is a place that a lot of people come, not just for the 4th of July holiday, but for, generally speaking, the weekend, for camps, for fun. Well, it happened to coincide on the 4th of July weekend, which meant there was a lot of people here, and that was why the reason we never heard that number. Unfortunately, when we did finally get that number, it was a couple of days thereafter, you're taken aback. You hear 161 people missing, and then you also hear that caveat of, unfortunately, that number may go up, and to this day, we don't know if that number is going to go up. We haven't gotten another update with any other totals so far, but that is something else that we are still waiting by. But again, at that point that you were making, we, right along with you all, as you all at home, I mean, this is an emotional time for our community, but the scope of this tragedy, it's something else. It's something else.
It's going to keep, I guess, growing. It's going to keep becoming more and more clear in the weeks ahead how catastrophic this really is. When the numbers change and the numbers grow, because we were thinking, how could this get any worse, especially when you look at Camp Mystic with all of the children. Our number's at 96, and there are so many of them are children. From just Kirk County, 96 deaths, and so many from Camp Mystic, and so many from just the campgrounds. How could it get any worse? Then we hear that at least 161 people were known to be here and have not been heard from since. And it's just insurmountable for something like this and the scope of injuries and deaths. And it's in this small community.
Yeah. So we do have a team of reporters fanned out across this area as we cover this story and bring you continuing coverage. And back there, we do want to toss things over to Jay Avila. Jay?
Thank you very much, Jonathan and Mandy. I'm here with Christina De Leon. We are on the set here, and we're watching that shot of the room where they're going to have that roundtable with the president. And it occurred to me as I was looking at the different many state officials
they just brought out canines
as well, that the state officials, many of them are going to be in the special session on the 23rd of this month, and they are going to be talking about all these issues of how the response and notification of people in flood-prone areas can be better. And that was something that was added to the special session, and now they're going to be discussing it. And some of the local officials at the news conferences, when they've been asked these questions about how long did it take you to notify people, why wasn't it sooner, and they've said, we're not going to address this now, the time for that will come later. And the sheriff said just a couple of days ago at one of these briefings that there's going to be a thorough review at the legislature during the special session. Right. And that calls to mind the same kind of thing that happened with Uvalde, with the shooting there.
Oh, yeah.
There was a legislative review that came first. They really looked at every minute of time and a breakdown of that incident. And it was first done by the legislature, and there were changes made as far as school security and other things in the aftermath of that. Well, it sounds like we're going to get the same kind of review where the lieutenant governor perhaps assigns some lawmakers, and there he is right there, Dan Patrick, assigned some lawmakers to take a really close look and interview people from all the different agencies about what happened minute by minute and why didn't some kind of notification go out. Could the rescue and rescue efforts have gone smoother? Now, of course, the big difference between this and Uvalde is that ultimately there were criminal proceedings that happened after Uvalde. No one's alleging that here, but they're going to be looking for any kind of missteps or mistakes that took place early on.
Yeah, so now we want to send it back to Jonathan and Mandy. I know you've got K9 behind you. They're searching and doing a quick, thorough sweep. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is one of the teams that we've been telling you about, and I kind of want to step out of the way so we can just focus on that. But we've got a crew out here with one of the pieces of machines, but we were telling you that this team had pulled up of, 8 vehicles,
about a
maybe
dozen
more.
or so, yeah.
And they've all gotten out. There was a boat, ATVs, some four-wheelers, and then they started having some of the media crews behind us move further away. They've got the canines out here. So what these are likely is cadaver dogs, and they're just doing what they've been doing, which is approach these piles of debris, sniff them, see if they make any type of detection, and they have certain ways of notifying their handlers of detecting that they may be in the proximity of a victim.
Well, and do keep in mind too, these dogs' noses are much more sensitive than ours. They are trained to detect the potential for a body that does need to be recovered. We've been out here since roughly 10:30 or so, and we can tell you that the search crews that we've seen out here, at least the recovery crews, have been out here mainly clearing debris. But this, at least in our immediate area, and to give you an idea, we are in Ingram right now at the Howdy Restaurant and Bar. This is the first time, though, that we have seen boots on the ground there with cadaver dogs or with canines that are working this specific little section of the Guadalupe River, presumably searching for the bodies of some of those that are missing.
And that's hard to say. This is so close to all of us, but they have mentioned, you know, we're in search and recovery, and they even have poles they're poking in the water because that's another way to indicate that there might be something that needs to be looked a bit further into. But they have helmets on, they've got these poles that they're sticking around in the water, and the dogs are walking further up
in
now.
fact, just on the other side there, as we pivot and look to the left, we do see someone who appears to have possibly scuba or diving gear on as well. So that would be the presumption that they're about to go possibly into the water to also start searching for more folks in this particular area. Again, right now, we are in Ingram, and we are keeping an eye, mind you, on that press conference, or not press conference, but roundtable discussion with the president. So we do have that in the back of our mind. In fact, that's another shot of it. Once the president gets there, we will take that and we will listen to what they have to say out there live. But in the meantime, out here in this immediate area, we are seeing some folks that are now going into the water with canine cadaver dogs, some of the dive teams as well. And they're posted up in certain, I guess, feed-offs in the river here looking for bodies.
And remember, this is a constantly moving river. It's flowing. So while there may not have been anything here a couple days ago, the river is still moving. So that could explain why they're back here, because this area has been incredibly heavily trafficked. And I don't know if you can get a shot of that, but what I was talking about, areas and structures that they have checked are marked with either flags, or one of them has a big orange kayak and a big orange X on the outside of the building. That is what they're doing to indicate to one another that, yes, we have checked this area, we have cleared this area, we don't need anybody to go back in here. Obviously, it's not in the water, it's no longer underwater. This is not an area that people need to be searching again or going back to. So the president's roundtable it's set to start in just a couple minutes. We haven't seen another shot of him, but we're starting to see all of the people start to kind of walk around the table.
A 2-minute warning on that.
Yeah.
So we're anticipating his arrival there at that roundtable discussion momentarily. In the meantime, we are working to find out why specifically the crews have pulled up to this particular area. We don't know if perhaps that's because one of the other search and rescue teams out here, recovery teams, said that they needed to be out here. We're going to try to work to find out that. But again, this is a scene of many of the scenes up and down the Guadalupe River that are taking place all the while as the president meets with state and local leaders here in our area.
They're searching spot by spot, inch by inch, mile by mile, at every fork, every turn, every bend of the river. Because there are still so many people who are missing, and there are such massive piles of debris. And they're not just branches or trees, they're RVs, they're cars, there are entire houses in these piles of debris.
Tell you what, we'll take a step off so you can get a better look again as we're waiting for the president to take the podium in the next minute or so. But as you can get an idea and a vantage point of what it is that we are seeing with some of the first responders.
And you're seeing the people with the helmets on. They've got the orange vests on. Not all of them do. But these are not like the local volunteers out here working to help their neighbors throughout this process. These are the teams who have been sent by search and rescue crews, the official crews. Okay, go out to this area, go out to this zone. And they're picking through what they haven't already cleared by hand, piece by piece. And you see that big pile of debris. They're everywhere. Those piles of debris are everywhere in this area. When this flood came through, it picked up so much. The way that it was described to us, it's horrific and it's terrible, but it was this massive, just this force. This force was this water that no human can compare to, because the houses couldn't, RVs couldn't, vehicles couldn't, and this force of water was picking them up. But along the way, there were certain things that, okay, one RV gets tangled up on a giant tree that doesn't end up uprooting. Well, then it becomes a catch-all, like a little basin for more vehicles to get stuck on, and then limbs, and then other trees. So before you know it, by the time this was all said and done, it was a huge mound. And we spoke with the owner of where we are right now, Howdy's Bar and Chill, and she said, just down the road, nobody's been able to get to it, nobody's able to clear it. There's 40, 50 vehicles and RVs that are piled up, and we know there are bodies in there because their vehicles are there. And she said the campground next door, 40 people are missing, and there was a family of 5 missing that was here and didn't get out of their RV. People were trying to help them. And that was what she woke up to that morning at 3:30. And sadly, that RV, she said, was just swept into floodwaters. But all of the other people here, it was 28 RVs on the main part and then 5 on the island, and every single one of them was taken.
Well, do keep in mind right now, they may have already likely searched this particular area. That goes without saying. They may be back in another area because after all, we're dealing with the river that continues to flow at a much different speed over the last couple of days. But there may be a chance that some of that debris, islands of debris, if you will, it may have moved downriver, which could be part of the reason that they may be back out to spots that they have already searched. There's a reason that they're out here. There's a reason that they're focusing on certain places. They may be back to some of those places that they've already visited.
It's due diligence, and that's why we see them bringing out the cadaver dogs, the canines, who can indicate when they catch a scent. And they're actually focused now on the other side. We know when this first happened, they were focusing on 100 meters
we can take a look
from
on
the
side
edge,
there,
but I can see all of the vests now. They're on the other side over there, and they're just walking, and that's where I think the dogs are too.
If you look just to the other side, a little bit farther to the left, there's a collection of these crews that have now made their way across the river. We did see at least 1, if not 2, dive teams that were also out there. At this point, they could be coming up with a game plan as to how they're going to continue to search this particular area. And mind you, all of that is in tandem with the crews that you see here in the foreground that are in the tractor trailers, that are in the big dump truck trailers over there, and chainsaws, and you name it. So you've got search and recovery efforts on that side of the river, and I think that speaks to again, the amount of work that's taking place out here. You've got search and recovery crews on one side of the river, on the other side of the river, you've got crews that are clearing some of the debris out here. Nevertheless, it's going to be a long process, but it's one that's not going to stop anytime soon for anybody out here. And
you're getting a really good perspective visually now on some of the things that we've been talking about, and that is the trees. The trees are just bent over. They've been essentially snapped in half, just pummeled by both water and the force of what was man-made that was being swept down the river. These trees just took a blow. They're scarred. Some of them are still standing, but the vast majority of them have just been overtaken, and they're just laying kind of on their side.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, it wasn't just the pressure of the water, of the wall of water that was coming down that river at the moment of this flash flood. It was RVs, it was cars, it was boats,
houses.
It was pieces of building. So you've got just this massive wall of water that's coming down the river, along with everything else in it that it was carrying. And that's what I guess right now, when you think about it, why it is where they are right now. It was just a vast area, and this is just one spot of a lot of miles of the river.
So 2 of the 4-wheelers and the ATV have taken off here behind us.
You can see them crossing into the river right there.
Some of these crews, so they're going across the river to look, to search, and some of the rescue crews are a little ahead of them, but they've just been unloaded. I don't believe I've seen the boat going yet, but there was a boat on the back of one of these vehicles. It's just interesting to give this perspective to you live as this is happening right now, as we're out here for this, because it's something we've been telling you has been happening all week, and now uniquely we're seeing it.
Well, we've seen many different agencies out here. I saw 2 or 3 different counties, St. Pedro, I believe it was, but then you've got DPS, any number of agencies is out here, and when you think about it, that's what we've been talking about. It's not just locals here.
Yeah.
It's across our state. In some instances, it's out of state, and we saw folks from down in Mexico.
Yeah.
But anybody that can help out is out here right now helping out in this what's going to be a very long road to find people out here who may still be missing.
Jonathan and Mandy,
Okay,
this is
and
Jay
we're
and
gonna send
Christina.
it back to Jay.
This is Jay and Christina in the studio again, and we kind of wanted to jump into your conversation a little bit. You have a lot of activity going on there, and I know that one of the things that we were told at the beginning was that there was going to be phase 1 of the search and phase 2 of the search, and that phase 1 was going to be quick, where they wanted to cover a lot of ground with helicopters, boats, and on foot. One pass to make sure that they found anybody that might be trapped, injured, calling for help, that kind of thing. And then they said in the coming days, at some point, we're going to transition over to phase 2, and that is more a painstaking grid search, like the kind of thing you're witnessing with dogs often. And in that case, they just need to look under every pile and to check any of those little coves or areas like you're speaking about where water or debris accumulates.
Yeah, and just 2 days ago, I was exactly where you were, and it was a group from El Paso, actually. They just had a couple of canines with them. It was a very small group, and they were doing the exact same thing, but not on the scale that you're seeing behind you. So that might have been the phase 1 part. Now, after they did their little tour, there were people on horseback. But as you said, this is a flowing river, and a lot more has been taken down and leveled out with excavators. So it does make me wonder, maybe there was something else that might have attracted them or brought them out there. But they did have the cadaver dogs, and it was just 2 dogs, and it was 2 people, and then they had a few people on horseback, and they had already completed the dam process. But again, we're talking moving water, and it might have been that phase 1 that Jay is talking about. So this is a much larger scale of what you're seeing behind you. So this just may be something that drew them back out to the scene and back out to that location to do some more looking, a little bit more thorough of a process.
Yeah, and another point to make, in those nights, the first night especially, nights 1 and 2, they were so focused on combing everything for survivors. The helicopters that they had up at night, they told us from the Coast Guard specifically, had infrared capabilities and special technology to like heat-seeking signatures. And that's what they were using, especially in the trees and along the banks, because they were looking and they were hoping, praying, and wanting to find survivors, like the girl in the tree. Her story we brought you earlier this week. We wanted to bring you more stories like that. We haven't heard of any in a couple days.
Well, they had talked about that early on as well. Initially, it was a search and rescue mission, but at no point early on did they say we want to turn this into a search and recovery effort, because ultimately we wanted to find as many people as we could alive. That did transition, I'd say, by midweek, because realistically at that point in time, up against the elements and what it was that we were seeing out here, it comes without saying that that's the reality. But now, again, the work is not done. The work ahead is to find the people who are missing, to be able to bring them back to their families, and for some of them, give them some sense of closure. Because mind you, we know right now of at least 120 people across the state, 96 confirmed dead here in Kirk County. But I mean, 161 at least are still missing. They don't have answers as to where their loved ones are. And that is why that process has been around the clock, will continue around the clock, because, I mean, those families are hurting. They're heartbroken. And you know, ultimately they do want, as I said, that sense of closure, at least some sense of closure.
And you know, families are getting the worst news that they never thought would come. Nobody expects anything like this to happen, and it's horrific, and it's horrible that it has. And these families have been given the worst news of their lives. But there are still at least 161 friends, loved ones, 161 people who are just up in the air, who don't know. They can make assumptions, but we've seen people who just said, I found out that this happened. I haven't heard from my loved one, and so I came out there, and I've been looking every day. And sadly, some of them have come to grips with, I'm just trying to look for their body now. We had a family up from in one of those community, Waterfront Drive is where it was, where a lot of those homes were picked up. They went out there and talked to Zach Hedrick, our sports anchor who was doing news because this had happened, and they were digging by hand, trying to find any indication of what had happened to their loved ones. But again, we are waiting for President Donald Trump to begin this roundtable, and I think we're going to go to Jordan now. Jordan, how is it looking over there?
Mandy and Jonathan, people are starting to take their seats in here, or they're being kind of directed that way. They've said if you're not a congressperson, please leave that front area. People are going to eventually sit down at the chairs around this table. The president expected to take that seat in the middle. We are expecting the president to come in any minute. We've seen a lot of Secret Service out here. We have Senators Cruz and Cornyn in the room right now. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is here for the second time this week. She did a press conference with Governor Abbott just a few days ago. We also see Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Attorney General Ken Paxton is here, DPS Director Freeman Martin, everybody getting ready to take their places around this table. And then there's also seating on the sides. It looks like that's where the Congress people are right now, and other Texas and Kirk County, Kerrville officials. So again, we are just waiting. They started setting up more curtains, presumably for an arrival. So we'll keep you updated out here on when the president arrives.
All right, Jordan, thanks a lot for that update. As the rest of the community in our area are also waiting for the president's arrival, just to give you runs, hits, and plays again of what's all taken place so far. We've been with you since about 11:30, and that is when President Donald Trump was making his way from D.C. here to Kelly Airfield out at Lackland. From there, he boarded Marine One. From there, he flew here to the Kerrville area where he met. He was with the governor along with the first lady. He met with some of the local and state leaders here on the ground to get a sense of what it is that they were going to see damage-wise on a map here physically. He met with some of the first responders. He met with others that are on the ground here. From there, the motorcade taking him to a place where they will be having a roundtable discussion right now with many, many congressmen there and local and state leaders as well.
Mm-hmm. And Senators Ted Cruz, John Cornyn there. We've got the shot of that's Representative Gonzalez. It's a room full of people who are descended on this little city of Kerrville to say, we see you. We recognize your pain, your loss. We're here. We want to help. We're going to listen, and we're all going to try to work together to find solutions. And as soon as this begins, we're pretty sure we'll be able to listen in and hear it all.
Yeah, we'll be able to listen and hopefully and hear what the president has to say, and maybe some of the questions that may be asked from
and
the
haven't
folks
seen
that are there.
the president, and I'm not sure what time it was that we went off of the shot that we had before when he, the first lady, and the governor were in front of the fire truck, the Kerrville fire truck, but it was at least 20 minutes ago. So making his way to where Jordan, we just heard from Jordan for this roundtable, whether there are any stops along the way, that's possible, or whether he is there and he's just meeting with some of the families, which was something that he was going to be doing. I believe this was supposed to start around now. And we know that the landing in San Antonio was a little bit pushed. Everything's been a little bit pushed today, so we don't know if this roundtable is going to start on time or not.
I mean, as to be expected, though, some things can change, but we are still waiting. That is why we do have a live picture for you there at the roundtable discussion. But to set the scene of where we are, again, we are at Howdy's Bar and Restaurant, right next to what was once the Blue Oak RV. There's only but a little bit left, if any. But that is some of what it is that they are up against out here, just in this particular area. Some 200 river miles of the Guadalupe is what crews are going to be monitoring and going up and down right now. As Jay and Christina had pointed out earlier, and as we've been reporting, phase one of this process would be of taking a look just as they could. Phase two, getting in there to take a little bit of a deeper look. Initially, the hopes are to find more survivors. Right now, it's a matter of recovering some of those that may still be missing out there.
And one of the things that they'll definitely be talking about at this roundtable is what do we do to prevent this tragedy from happening in a community ever again? Especially, as we've said, this is known as Flash Flood Alley. We don't ever want to see this happen again. And a lot of people have called for some type of warning systems. And that certainly is something that they'll be putting into consideration. I think we're going to take another look at what these search and rescue crews are doing. They have their boat out, and one of the four-wheelers is pulling the search and rescue boat. So we'll be able to watch where they put it in. The ATV is parked across the street. One of the four-wheelers is approaching us again. The rest of the rescuers are quite a bit off in the distance, but I can see them just walking along the bank. But they are bringing this boat over here. Jay and Christina, we'll let you kind of navigate what you're seeing.
Yeah, so we're looking at an ATV. These are the official crews. I was out there a couple days ago. Sadly, I saw some people that looked like they wanted to be social media influencers. They were out there with their cell phones standing out there. I saw a couple of young people on their ATVs, and the owners of this resort just had to shoo them and run them off. And then I also saw, sadly, some people who lost loved ones who were walking around, and of course the owner let them walk around and just kind of mourn the loss of their loved ones and just let them take it all in. Just take in what was going on and obviously reflect on where they last saw their loved ones, whether it was on video, and listen to maybe a voicemail or something like that, and just take in what was going on. But what you're looking at here on the right side of your screen are official people who are there out to rescue and recover maybe, and get a better look and a sense of all the damage that we've been seeing the last few days, this last week.
And by and large, most of the people that we've seen out there doing this kind of work, they're remarkably focused on their job.
And experienced, obviously, know what they're doing.
And even people who are locals who have wanted to get out and take a look at the damage caused by the flood and the way the terrain of their city and county has changed, they have been asked to kind of stay off the roads, don't come into some of these areas. Some of the areas where they've been doing some of the searching has been parks that are frequented by people, but they're just almost unrecognizable now because of all the debris and I remember we saw some tree wrapped around a playscape. You could barely tell what it was. But here, the activity seems very focused, as if perhaps they have found something specific and that they're going to take a closer look with the dive crews who actually have to get into the water. And this is a very solemn, serious job, something that we usually don't see. This is the part of it where certainly the task itself is unpleasant, but perhaps the only thing more unpleasant than that is the prospect of what they might find under the water or in the debris. But it's something that they have to do in order to get rid of the uncertainty for family members. And
it's a promise, actually, that the governor made and all of the city officials made, that they will not stop until every 161, the unaccounted for, are accounted for. And that's exactly what they are doing, making good on their promise. So they are going out there in the Guadalupe River, and they are going to do just that. You can see with that Jeep truck there, and in those ATVs, they're going in the river there, and they are going to do just that. As the president is on the ground, they have not stopped that search and recovery effort. Even with the president in town today, nothing is stopping this recovery effort on this 7th day, this full week, first week since the flooding happened.
I remember on that last Friday, within hours of the flood happening, we were out there in Kerrville and in the surrounding areas. A number of us reporting for News 4. And I asked the question at the first briefing they had, do you have any idea how many people you are looking for? Because it's July 4th weekend. There are people, no one checks in. There are no lists of who's there throughout the county up and down the river. There are people in RVs, private campsites, vacation homes, cabins, summer camps, of course. And they looked bewildered. They looked like they have no idea how many people were out there enjoying the river, enjoying their time off. And they were going to have to find people who no one knew the exact number. Now, in the days since then, they finally have gotten to the point where at least they said they believe it's somewhere in the area of 160, possibly more, that they're still looking for and that are missing.
And I asked that exact same question to a council member, and he said the best way that they could try to gauge that number was by the way, the city population, 25,000. It doubles for the 4th of July weekend. They have lots of people out there. They were expecting a concert, and then the flooding came. And he said the best way they could gauge that number was by going through the Chamber of Commerce. It was the last resort effort. They were pinging phones in the area, and that was the best way that they could try to gauge that number. And that's how they got to that 161 that were still unaccounted for, by doing that method, because that was the best way that they could ultimately discover how many people that they could try to get that number ultimately. So you're looking at live pictures along the Guadalupe River. That's from Ingram. That is from the Blue Oak Resort. And there's rescue crews trying to get into the water there to try to get some closure for some families from the 161 who are still unaccounted for at this hour.
And it just so happens while they were standing there, this operation got underway. And what you're seeing putting the boat in, from what we've been told by rescue workers, is what happens when they suspect that there may be victims that they've located from the flooding. They need to take a closer look. They need to get into some of that brush and debris and look. And I remember I met one of the persons who was out there doing some of that searching, and this was earlier in the week. He had been called by a former coworker. He was retired himself from Kerr County, and he was doing some of the searching by boat, and he said that he remembered doing the same type of activity back in 1987.
The last flooding that happened there.
He was out there searching the river at that point. He had worked for the fire department at that point. Now he's retired. And so it really brought back some very poignant memories for him that he was back here again looking for victims of a flooding disaster.
This is all as everyone is sitting down. You can see Melania Trump there at the front part of your screen wearing the khaki. And oh no, that's not Melania, is it?
That's
a donor. It looks like.
Yeah,
no,
someone else,
not
but
her.
it looked very close to what Melania was wearing when they took the trip.
It sure did, didn't it?
We're still awaiting for the first couple there at what this is a roundtable where they're going to meet with the state and local officials. You see Chip Roy there.
And Ted Cruz there.
Yeah, and so they're taking their seats, so we can only assume that they're going to be getting underway here very shortly.
And greeted by the president, hopefully at the forefront, right in the middle, should be arriving here soon as they all take their seats, and they can have that roundtable discussion. And no doubt they're going to be discussing what the president has gleaned from this trip here to Kerrville. What is going to be next? I would imagine the emergency system that you have talked about extensively, and that red alert might be a topic also, as you see that big Texas strong with the American flag in the background, and what he has seen as a result of seeing Kerrville and seeing all the people who have been there for him as he has arrived in Kerrville, and what he can take from this trip so far as a result of him touching down here in Kerrville via, first San Antonio, and then coming to Kerrville, and see what he has to say about what is next as far as this recovery effort and all of the rescues, more than 850 of them, because of the mass flooding that's happened a week ago.
So on one side of your screen, you're seeing a live picture of a search boat being put into the waters of the Guadalupe there. As the search continues during the president's visit, on the other side, you have the location there in Kerrville, where they're having the meeting with the president. And one of the topics that will likely come up is the cooperation with FEMA, which in past years, FEMA has taken the lead, has been much more visible on the ground at some disaster sites, and taking the lead in some of the efforts there. But you noticed a definite shift this time around, that the Trump administration, their policy is to let the state and the governors actually take the lead in disaster response. He told the news media on several occasions when asked about this, what he was trying to do with that agency, and really with multiple agencies throughout the government that he's trying to streamline. And there is cost cutting involved. There are spending cuts, and there have been personnel cuts in those agencies. That leads some to question whether FEMA will be at full strength to help out in situations like that. And that's something that the president may expound upon on whether his strategy is in any way shortchanging disaster response. You see on your screen there Nim Kidd, who is the head of the chief of the Texas Department of Emergency Management.
See Dan Patrick there too, and you see the mayor of Kerrville, Mayor Herring, and other local officials mixed in with some state officials there too, as we await the president, who will be leading this roundtable discussion here, as we all await for him, along with the people await him for his visit, as well as everybody else there in that roundtable discussion.
And Mandy pointed out that they only give you kind of a ballpark schedule of everything and when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
This meeting was supposed to get underway around 2:15, so it's a little bit behind schedule. But of course, the big items on the itinerary for the president were to meet with victims' families and to take an aerial tour of all the destruction up and down the Guadalupe River. And as far as the searching is concerned, we've been told that they were searching from the community of Hunt, where we had so many terrible casualties from the summer camp there, all the way down to Comal County to Canyon Lake. That's a huge area. They were saying 100 kilometers to have to search. And of course, they don't just go to the river's edge. They have to search a considerable amount of land on either side, on either shore. And you see the attention focused here on debris on one side of the river there. And it's a tough job, it's a dangerous job, and it's one that takes an emotional toll on these search and rescue professionals. But I call them professionals because while many of them, they're coming from local agencies, they're coming from state agencies. We have a lot of federal personnel that are helping in the search. And Texas has put out the call, and it has been answered. And so we're still seeing this type of intense searching going on, even while the president visits to try and both comfort and to reassure the community that all the resources of the federal government will be brought to bear on this terrible, terrible tragedy.
And it is exactly what you said. You know, we heard it from the first press conference, and we heard it thereafter from local and state officials, all the way from the mayor, the city manager, the city leaders, the county leaders, all the way to the governor, that they will not stop until everyone who's unaccounted for is found. And we're even seeing it from the president's visit, which is happening right now in real time. And you're looking at it to the left of your screen. He is in town right now. To the right of your screen, the search is still going on right now. So they've kept their promises, even though that you have the highest person in the land visiting in town. To the right of your screen, there is still search and recovery going on. They have not stopped. They said it will be a 24/7 operation. Even our governor pointing out that even in the middle of the night, they have infrared technology that they would be using on day one, day two. When he came into town, he said, we will not stop until everyone is accounted for. Well, he's a man of his word. They are still searching, even with the president in town. You can see on the right side of your screen, they are doing just that. On ATVs, on those rafts, they are still searching, even with the president in town. You can see it on the right side of your screen. It is still unclear if they found anything, but we know that there are cadaver dogs out there. We know that there are rafts out there. We know that there are people looking via ATV, and they have not stopped searching. And we have 161 people that they know of so far still unaccounted for. 96 people have been recovered. Their bodies have been recovered. And so far, more than 850 people have been rescued in some way, shape, or form in the last 7 days since this flooding happened on the 4th of July. So again, we are still waiting this roundtable discussion. It looks like everybody is in place, and we are all awaiting the president and Melania Trump. We're waiting for them to sit down, and it doesn't appear that the governor is there right now, but we will just wait to see what they have to say about their impressions, about what they've seen so far and all of the devastation. that this flood has caused in this small community of 25,000 that basically has swelled in size because of all of the media that was brought to this city, and now the national spotlight and international spotlight that has been brought upon this city. And we will see what he has to say and what more can be done to help with this community that really is mourning so many losses of life here.
So the last time we saw President Trump and Melania Trump was about a half hour, 40 minutes ago. And at that time, they were meeting some of the first responders. They took some pictures with them, shared some encouraging words for them. Everyone from the Kerr County Sheriff, Larry Latha, to some of the other searchers, both from state agencies and federal agencies, were there. And they took a brief photo op, if you will, and encouraged the troops there looking for, still running the search. And they've been doing the aerial tour as well today of all the damage and devastation that is there. And we just keep seeing the activity increase there on the right-hand side of the screen. Obviously, they have had indication that they needed more man and woman power there in that area to take a look at the debris in the water and the surrounding area. We just think back, it was a week ago that the floodwaters rose by an incredible amount, 20 to 30 feet in such a short amount of time, and washed down the river and its banks, and taking with it RVs, cabins, cars, and there's still so many people missing. And one thing that will be discussed today probably is whether there's a way to really notify people in a better way than we did. We talked earlier about how the National Weather Service has its ways of notifying people through their cell phones, but they also have that local system. Other communities have it too. In New Braunfels, for example, here closer to San Antonio, they do have an alert system where they will alert your cell phone if there's a flooding emergency. They call it by another name, but there in Kerr County it's called the Red Alert. And that Red Alert system, by all accounts, did not work the way it was intended to. We have reported, as of yesterday, we reported that the Red Alert was not put out for some reason, and there wasn't proper approval given by someone who had to give the go-ahead. And we're still kind of waiting for more clarification on why that was. That's a key part of it, is the notification, because that's something the legislature can take action in coming up here in a few days. Perhaps provide enough funding for some siren systems like they have in New Braunfels and Comfort. And certainly Kerrville would seem to be, Kerrville, Hunt area, Kerr County would be an ideal area for sirens, it would seem, because from the people I've talked to who have actually heard them in other communities, they get your attention. There's no denying, you don't dismiss it kind of the way you do your cell phone alerts. And
or notifications, right?
Exactly. And so something has to be done. It's becoming abundantly clear that we have to improve the way that we warn people about floodwaters. It's just too common. Even though this kind of event, the magnitude of this event is rare. I think the president, after being briefed, said that he thought it was a once in 200 year type event, and that it was extraordinary in that area. And even locals will tell you it is not something that they ever anticipated or thought could happen. And I remember the sheriff told me that it was just in his view a perfect storm, how they have the two forks of the Guadalupe River at that point, and just upstream. And they've had a lot of water come down on the river before and in the watershed, but to have it come down and feed both of those forks at the same time, to where it just swells up in the main river itself, and to have it look normal at around 3:30 in the morning, and then to go to that kind of a flood stage so quickly, is just something a lot of people didn't think was possible.
So we drove out starting at 5 in the morning to Kerrville. And what was so unusual about that day, because we started at a reunification center, we knew nothing about deaths, is that it rained nonstop the entire day. So that storm system, and this was after this had already happened, but we knew nothing about deaths, is what I could tell you every single live shot we did, and we did about 18 of them that day, is that in most of those live shots, I said what was unusual about that day was that it never stopped raining. And that was after the fact. That was after all of the damage had been done, after everything had been swept away, is that the one thing that felt so unusual and eerie about that day is that the rain never stopped. So that storm system stayed and stayed and stayed and basically stalled out. They call it a train storm type. It just stayed on the track, and it just stayed there. And it just stayed there, and it stayed there, and it didn't move. And whether it was hard or slowed down, the rain just kept coming, just kept coming, just kept coming. And again, that was after all of the damage was done, and those poor lives were lost basically on the river, and there was literally nothing anybody else could do. That was after 5 in the morning. We were doing our live shots 6, 7, 8, 9. We were out there till noon, and the rain simply would not stop, making things worse basically for anybody and everybody. And again, at that time, at 5 in the morning, we did not know any lives were lost. So we were doing interviews with people who were happy that they made it out live. They were reunificating. So it was a reunification center. They got their RVs out. We were happy for them. We were grateful. And now I'm sure they have survivor's guilt. You know, we had no idea at the time, but the rain kept going. It was hard rain. It was soft rain. It was light rain. It was hard rain, and it just wouldn't stop. So imagine that kind of system all night long throughout the night. And it was it just turned out to be deadly and tragic for so many people on that day, that 4th of July, which turned out to be just a horrific holiday for so many people. And
for those of us who've been out there covering this terrible tragedy for a week now, you really have to commend the people of Kerr County. Under the circumstances, they have been so welcoming.
And kind, yes, absolutely.
I encountered some of them, and you could tell they had a dazed look on their face. They couldn't believe the number of casualties and the damage and the loss that they'd suffered. But number of them would drive by and say, "We're glad you're here. We're glad you're getting the word out. We're glad that you are telling this story, and that we are getting the help that we need." Just a very strong, and even under the circumstances, hospitable area of the state.
So sincere, yes.
And that continues to this date, even though they've been inundated with not only search and rescue crews and emergency workers, but with the news media that have been here to cover this disaster and show the rest of the country, and in some cases the rest of the world, what is going on here. And we're hoping that at the end of the day, that what they will see is something positive that comes out of this in terms of being able to handle disasters of this scale in a more efficient way, so that we can somehow reduce casualties in the future, because this will be the kind of threat that we always have as long as we're living in this beautiful region of the country, this beautiful part of Texas that everyone loves so much. No one wants to give up the kind of lifestyle that we have along our rivers and lakes. And so we just have to find a way to warn people in a more efficient way, and hopefully work together in the aftermath of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do want you to know that we're here for you. We love you. We're praying for you. We think about you all the time. That's why we want to tell your stories. And we're grateful that you have opened your hearts to us. You've opened your doors to us. You've opened up your stories to us. And we just want to say thank you for that, too. I know it's been hard for some of you, and we appreciate you so much. And we're grateful for that. So we are here for you. We're not going anywhere. We're your local news. So we're not leaving after the president leaves. We are going to be back in town. We're going to keep following your stories, and we thank you so much for telling us your stories. So we want to go back out live to Mandy and Jonathan and hear more what they have to say. So we just want to know more from you, and we want to hear more of your stories, and we want to hear more of what you have to say. And we do appreciate everything that you have told us thus far, and we do appreciate your hospitality, because it means so much to us. And we thank you so much for your kindness the last few days. I've been out there about 4 times already, and everybody has been so kind to me, and we do appreciate it. Now it looks like the governor is making his way with the president, and everyone is standing for them, appropriately so. And we do want to listen in to what they have to say about their tour of Kerrville, and what they've had to say about all of this flood damage and what comes next here for the city of Kerrville.
Well, this is a tough one. And we just were making a little tour of the area. It's hard to believe the devastation. Trees that are 100 years old just ripped out of the ground. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one. We just visited with incredible families that, look, they've been devastated. They lost their child or 2 children, and just hard to believe what, I've never seen anything like it. A little narrow river that becomes a monster, and that's what happened. But the First Lady and I are here in Texas to express the love and support and the anguish of our entire nation in the aftermath of this really horrific and deadly flood. Nobody has any idea how and why a thing like this could happen. It's, and by the way, I have to tell you, the people here, first responders, the sheriff's office, all of the police, law enforcement, they've done an unbelievable job. And in speaking to the parents, they said everybody has been so professional, from the governor to the senators, all the way down to the local people on the site that really are a little bit used to this. But they've been looking at this for years, but in much smaller doses, much smaller doses. 12 years ago, and then in 1932, they had a real bad one, but that bad one was half of what this was. But I was speaking to some of the great people in the town, and they said, no, every year we get a little bit, but it was like a little bit of a flood, right? You were telling me, and it was just a flood. We got used to it. We had people, and we took care of it, and this year it was like, what's going on, right? So all across the country, Americans' hearts are shattered. I had to be here as president. First Lady wanted to be here. All the beautiful souls, and we're filled with grief and devastation. It's the loss of life, and unfortunately, they're still looking. They're still looking. There's a lot of missing children, possibly, mostly. We don't know, but they're still looking, and they'll find everybody, but it's not an easy thing. You would think it would be easy. It's very tough. I looked at what they're going through, what they have to do. But dozens and dozens of precious children taken from us with such, I looked at the pictures of almost all of them, and it's terrible. Following a torrential downpour, the worst that anyone's ever seen, Guadalupe River rose 26 feet in less than 45 minutes, and I've even heard it went well over 30 feet. There's one story that one person said it had to be 60 feet at one moment. This is like a giant wave in the Pacific Ocean that the best surfers in the world would be afraid to surf. And it unleashed a catastrophic flooding as most residents were asleep in their beds. A very dark evening. The waters claimed at least 135, 140 lives. They're getting that count, but the count that they don't have is how many are still missing. But a lot of lives, a lot of young angels. At the Girls Christian Summer Camp, known as Camp Mystic, a legendary camp, a camp that people would want to go to from all over the country. People, parents, they come and they would stay with their children. They'd stay in other cabins just to be with their children, but a legendary place. They were there because they loved God And as we grieve this unthinkable tragedy, we take comfort in the knowledge that God has welcomed those little, beautiful girls into his comforting arms in heaven. And we believe that, have to believe that, and we do. And we lost some wonderful people beyond the little girls. We lost some very brave men and women that tried to save the girls. As our nation, we mourn for every single life that was swept away in the flood, and we pray for the families that are left behind. It's amazing the incredible spirit from those families. I don't know. I don't even know how they do it. But moments ago, Melania and I spent a lot of time with them. That's why we're a little late. I think this was a good reason to be late, frankly. And we just gave our warmest condolences. But you say to yourself, you know, how do you give condolences? How do you do that to a young person that 3 days ago was here, 4 days ago was here and vibrant, and now is no longer here? The search for the missing continues. The people that are doing it are unbelievable people. That you couldn't get better people than this anywhere, Christy, right? Anywhere in the world, you couldn't get better people. And they're doing the job like I don't think anybody else could, frankly. And I want to thank them. I want to thank all of these great first responders who raced into very grave danger. We have some people that were incredible. The single Coast Guard rescue crew saved an incredible 169 children at Camp Mystic, 169. And the camp staff was also incredibly courageous. Are those Coast Guard people around here someplace? Because I hear some incredible people. And I actually, Scott Ruskin, is he around? Where's Scott?
He's not here right now, sir,
So-
but he will be here later, and I will be.
Oh, okay. Well, you let him
presenting
know.
them with some- I'll let him
And
know.
John Dunn, the owner of the Hunt store, was a flood. Where are you? Okay, good. We spoke a little while ago, and it sort of, John was telling me some stories about that store, and it was just really amazing.
Yes, Mr. President. First, let me correct. I'm was owner of the Hunt store from 2013 till April of last year, where I actually sold the store to Haley and BB Lehrman, who are excellent operators, and they're on the ground right now in Hunt, leading the effort there together with
Good.
the fire department, the churches, the schools, what have you.
Good.
And they're doing a phenomenal job.
Good job.
My role in it is I had seller finance the deal. And
You're
so
going to bring
I'm-
it back?
I'm absolutely going to bring it back.
And the
together
walls
with
are up,
Haley
the
and
two
BB.
walls are up, and you're
Look,
going to...
there's belief out there that it was a total loss. It's not. Gentleman by the name of Larry Graham put up some incredible walls in 1973, and he's a great engineer, and those walls are still standing.
Save the walls.
Save the walls.
Okay.
And the goal is, and I think we can get it done between Haley, BB, myself, and some outside help that we're going to be getting. I think we're going to get it reopened very quickly.
Good.
I think it's important to get it open quickly because once we do, the community can get back to a sense of normalcy. I think it'll be good for the community. I think it'll accelerate the recovery process. There's a lot that has to be done, but I'm impressed and very pleased with the resources that I think are going to become available through the conversations with Chip Roy, Governor Abbott's office, and others,
Good.
that we will get it done quickly. Yes, sir.
Thanks, John. Good luck with it. Okay, I'm sure you will. The search for the missing is continuing, as you know, and today I especially want to thank all of these incredible people from the Coast Guard, and you'll give my regards in particular to some of the people we mentioned. Every American should be inspired by what's taken place during this short period of time, and I want to thank Governor Abbott. He's an amazing guy. We come very, very close politically and personally, and we've had a tremendous relationship with Texas. I guess Texas brought us together. We were together fine, but now we're together a lot more. And I want to thank Cecilia, your great wife, who's been our friend for a long time. The job you do is really incredible in so many different ways, including with the border and every different way. Admired by everybody. Secretaries, Kristi Noem, Brooke Rollins, Scott Turner, and Administrator Kelly Loeffler, they all wanted to be here. Some of them hopped on the plane with me. Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, you're here among us. And thank you very much. Our great Lieutenant Governor, I see you sitting there. I don't know if they even have your name down, but when I'm here, your name is down, right? He's doing a good job, always did. Always did. Also, numerous members of Congress, including Chip Roy from the district. This is Chip's district. I had a lot of time last week we spent with Chip Roy getting that great, big, beautiful bill passed. And who would have thought, and he's not easy, but he's good. Where is he? Where's Chip? Who would have thought this was going to happen? And he called because we had a big ceremony set up, and he said, you know, we have a little bit of a flood here, and I think it's going to be a little bit, I better stay here. I better not come back and go to it. And he wanted to be there. He was a part of it, a big part of it. And then he called again, and he said, this is bad. And then it got really bad, far beyond your worst, wildest imagination, right? So thank you very much, Chip. I appreciate it. And Brian Babin also is, I don't know if Brian's here. But we do have, and I have to just give some of the names because it's very unusual. Nathaniel Moran, Dan Crenshaw, all of these people wanted to be here. Keith Self, Jake Elzey, August Pfluger, Greg Goldman, Ronnie Jackson. Where are you people? Are you here? You're all here? Where's Ronnie Jackson? Ronnie Jackson, what a person. Every one of these people is so incredible. Randy Weber, Pete Sessions, Tony Gonzalez. Well, we have everybody. Beth Van Dyne. Hi, Beth. Hi, Beth. Roger Williams, Brandon Gill. Hi, Roger. Brandon, you're here? Yes? Thanks, Brandon. Doing a good job, Brandon. Michael Cloud, John Carter, and Wesley Hunt. And we have others, but I'm not, we have to get on with it. But I did want to ask Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He's been my friend from the beginning. He's been the chairman of all three of my campaigns, and all I know is we won by record amount, so I guess you were a pretty good chairman, right, Dan? And his son is fantastic, too. But Attorney General Ken Paxton. Ken's around here someplace. Hi, Ken. Hi. And Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Freeman Martin. Freeman, thank you very much. You're doing an amazing job. Texas Chief of Emergency Management, Nim Kidd. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for greeting us, too. Major General Thomas Seltzer of the Texas Military Department. Thomas, great job. Thank you. Really good job. And many other officials and government, everybody is here. You know, it's amazing. I do these things, and often you just don't have a turnout like this. Half of government is here, but my administration is doing everything in its power to help Texas, and I can tell you that and the governor will be the first to tell you that when the request was made for the emergency funds, Christie, I think we gave it within about 2 minutes, maybe less, and they had everything they needed, right, immediately. So we've deployed over 400 first responders and assisted or enabled more than 1,500 rescues. Amazing, 1,500. Customs and Border Protection and the U.S. Coast Guard have deployed numerous search and rescue crews, and they're all over the territory, and trauma teams. And beyond this area, you know, the governor was saying we've gone a little bit beyond this area. Oh, there's Dr. Phil. Look at Dr. Phil. You're looking good, Phil. This is a hell of a situation, isn't it, huh? FEMA has deployed multiple emergency response units, and FEMA has been really headed by some very good people. We have some good people running FEMA. It's about time, right? We get some good ones. They failed us in North Carolina, but when we got in on January 20th, they fixed it up in no time. And the Army Corps of Engineers is always around and always strong and brilliant. We're also taking historic action to ensure that such a nightmare never happens again. And we're going to look and see how can a thing like this, they could say it's 100-year. Somebody said it's a 500-year event. It doesn't. We're not going to let a thing like this happen again where it can wreak this kind of devastation. Earlier this year, I directed a sweeping review of the preparedness and critical infrastructure. I think, again, I have to say, whenever I say that, I have to say that the level of professionalism was incredible. but we'll all work together to find out exactly what can be done, because they do want to rebuild, and they're going to. I just want to say we have a wonderful First Lady, and she's done a great job as First Lady, and she really very special woman when she saw what and met the people that we met just a little while ago. It's very devastating. And would you like to say a few words, honey?
My deepest sympathy to all of the parents who lost beautiful young souls. Deepest sympathy from all of us to the community, to everybody who lost a loved one. We are grieving with you. Our nation is grieving with you. We just met with the wonderful families. We pray with them, we hug, we hold hands. They share the stories, and I met beautiful young ladies. They gave me this special bracelet from the camp in honor of all of the little girls that they lost their lives. So we are here to honor them and also to give the support, help, and I will be back. I promise to them, and I just pray for them and giving them my strength and love.
Thank you, honey. It's very nice. Thank you very much. So I just want to say God bless you all, and I'd like to ask Governor Abbott to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, First Lady. The first thing both of you mentioned were the lives that were affected by this. Whenever there's a disaster or catastrophe, the first thing we focus on is saving lives, prioritizing those lives. Every minute, every hour counts, and that's what Chief Nim Kidd focused on, what the local officials focused on, what the state focused on, but also what your administration did. On the very day of the flood, you know, the Coast Guard literally saving lives right and left, and we cannot thank you enough for deploying the Coast Guard, deploying the resources, and as you pointed out, immediately when I made a request for a disaster declaration, you and your administration granted that. This is the fastest that I'm aware of any administration responding so swiftly, so collaboratively, so coordinated as we have in response to this. Thank you for that major disaster declaration. It ensures that we're going to be able to more effectively respond and help rebuild. And let me make one thing clear about the Hunt store. We will rebuild the Hunt store very quickly right here in Hunt, Texas.
Thank you, Governor.
Also, I too want to thank all the first responders. And we have many of our legislators over here. I want to thank them for stepping up and being here constantly, as well as state officials who join with us. And as we've said before, we remain committed. We're here for the long run. We will maintain our operations to search and find everybody that we can, as well as ensure that we're going to rebuild this community from Hunt to Camp Mystic to Kerrville down below. We are committed for the long run, not just to rebuild, but to rebuild in a better way. I have received a lot of detail, even from the President himself, about ways that we can do a better job in the rebuilding process, and we will put all of that to work. We have a special session beginning in 10 days when we're going to start working legislatively to make sure that we address every challenge that the people of this entire region, including the Central Texas region, make sure we help rebuild the families and communities of all of them. But we would not have been able to do that the way that we have had it not been for you, your commitment to Texas. I know you love Texas, and Texas loves you. We appreciate you showing up, and because of your swift and effective response, we're better positioned to deliver on all those commitments than ever before.
Thank you, Governor. That's very nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Christy, would you like to say something? Fantastic job you've done.
Well, Mr. President, I just want to thank you for coming and being here today, and to our First Lady as well. Your heart is evident for the people of Texas, and by you coming here and spending the day and taking the time to spend so much time with the families, I've spoken with many of them over the last several days, and they're so grateful for you that not only are you here to come and walk alongside of them, but to spend time with them and to deploy resources to help support the governor and his team, I think has meant the world, not just to those that are making the decisions, but to all of those down to the ones who have lost their children and those who are still looking for their children. So that's the hardest part about the situation we have here today, sir, is that when you have a disaster like this, I believe this is an unprecedented event. I haven't heard in my knowledge, know of a flood that happened like this before. So, you know, in our experience, we know that it's at least a 1 in 1,000 year flood that hit this area in an unprecedented way. And emergencies and disasters are always locally executed. The state manages them, and then the federal government comes in and supports that. What we are doing here, sir, is empowering the state and the local officials to make the best decisions for their people, because they know their people, they know their community, and when they ask, then we come in and support them. So thank you for being a president who trusts people, who lets them use the responsibility that they have to make the best decisions for their families, for their communities, and we come in and we support them in that. So I can't thank you for helping us making such quick decisions, for Nim and his team, and the governor is absolutely fantastic. Every time I picked up the phone and was here, the lieutenant governor was available, the entire team, the Coast Guard and the Border Patrol were absolute amazing resources on the ground immediately, and we've had over 700 different FEMA employees and volunteers here as well that are engaged, and so all of your assets that you have as a federal government are deployed to help this community restore, but also to heal. I would just ask everybody in the room to remember to love on each other too, and to tell stories and memories, and that's how. The greatest fear when you lose someone in your life is that people will forget them. So tell the stories that you knew and write them down and remember them, because nobody wants their loved one that they don't have anymore to ever be forgotten.
Thanks,
So
Christy. Appreciate it. Nim, would you say a few words, please? You've done a
Mr.
fantastic
President.
job working with Christy and everybody else. Thank you. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Thank you both for being here. Our hearts are broken, but they fuel the engine that drives this response for this community. These local first responders are the best in the nation. They put their lives on the line. Our volunteer firefighters that were out there putting their lives on the line, knowing that their homes were at risk. You have the best in the nation right here at the local level. Governor Abbott declared 21 Texas counties for this weather event under a state of disaster declaration. Your immediate declaration for individual assistance and public assistance will help us rebuild and recover. We've had over 2,200 state agency response personnel assisting our local government partners. But Mr. President, here's a staggering number. Over 12,300 volunteers have shown up here out of love to support this community. Just imagine, working 10 hours a day, 7 days into this event right now, that's over 861,000 hours of volunteer support right here. 19 other states have sent resources to us. Secretary Noem, thank you for the coordination and the effort on that. Your team has been phenomenal. We will continue the search nonstop. We will continue debris removal, and we will help this community rebuild. We're ready, sir.
Thank you for a really great job you've done, and the coordination's been incredible with us and everybody else. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Dr. Phil, I see you sitting there, and this might be a time for you to give us some of your words of wisdom, if you would. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I've talked to families and survivors, parents and grandparents, and the truth is we know psychologically that the number one stressor that we can experience in life is the loss of a child. And the worst situation that we can experience that is when it's sudden and when it's violent. That's the worst thing that can happen stress-wise in life. And you know, it's people say, well, you know, you get over it in time. You will. The truth is, you never get over it. You get through it. And one of the things Secretary Noem was just talking about, no truer words could be said, that it's cathartic to talk about this. And there's a collective consciousness in these communities down here. This is my country here. Texas is home for me. And,
Right.
and there's a collective consciousness here And everybody in these communities suffered this loss at some level. And so everybody shares that. And so everybody shares the healing. And that will come through here. Everybody will rally together. And this is about faith, and it's about family, and it's about, it's truly about community. And it says Texas Strong on the front of on the desk that you're sitting at, and that's true, because people will come together. And we need to realize that giving this a voice, and if you see someone in the store, everybody wonders, do I say something to them? I know they lost a child or a grandchild. Do I bring it up, or because they look like they're doing okay? The answer to that question is an unambiguous yes. You don't ever let them think you've moved on from it. It's okay to go and say, hey, look, I know about the loss. I share that with you, and I love you, and we won't forget this, because these bright lights will go away, another headline will come along, and people move on. Let them know we don't forget. We don't forget the loss. It will never go away, and we remember it. And these first responders down here, men and women that were diving into those waters. I've talked to a woman whose husband was standing on the bank of the river yelling to a father, "Throw me your baby, throw me your baby, let me help you." Mr. President, there is a depth of root and caring here like you just can't believe until you see it. And everybody here knows that. And it's so inspiring for you and the First Lady to come here and share this and see the fiber of these communities. That's why they rally around you and everything that you stand for here, from the border to the disasters. And it's not just a photo op for you to be here. People see your heart and believe in what you stand for. And God bless you for coming here and doing this. It means a lot. God bless you.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. I'm glad I asked him to say a few words, Dan. Do you want to say a couple of words, Dan? Please, Lieutenant Governor.
We spoke the morning immediately. You and I talked the very next morning, and he was right there.
First of all, Mr. President, First Lady, a long time ago, I asked a pastor when I was going to see a hospital, a person in the hospital who didn't have long to live, and I said, "What do I say?" And they said, "Don't worry about what you say, just be there." So you and Madam First Lady, the two of you being here, sends a message. It paints a picture that words can't express, and it gives them hope. And the people of this community have become a family. I didn't know the mayor last week. I wish I didn't know him today under these circumstances. But we've become a family around this room, and it starts with you at the top, down to the governor, down to the statewide, down to the secretary. I mean, Christy Nome coming in, she called Saturday morning and said, "The president wants me to be there today." And she came. And so that message is so important. Two things will get us through: our faith. So the people along this river are not standing on the rock of the bank of the river. They're standing on the rock of their faith. And that will get them through the struggles that you talk about. But you and the federal government will help us get through everything, all the debris that has to be taken, all the rebuilding. And I know we can count on you. So from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of all of these families, thank you for being here. You just can't measure how much it means to them.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great job. Appreciate it. Do you want to take a couple of questions, Governor? Would you want to do that? Do you want to? Sure. Is the press going to be respectful of this event, this horrible event, this horrible tragedy? Please, yes. Go ahead, please.
Marissa Atmas here with CBS News Texas. Several families we've heard from are obviously upset because they say that those warnings, those alerts didn't go out in time, and they also say that people could have been saved. What do you say to those families?
Well, I think everyone did an incredible job under the circumstances. This was, I guess Christy said, a 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 years. And I just have admiration for the job that everybody did. There was just admiration. The only bad person would ask a question like that, to be honest with you. I don't know who you are, but only a very evil person would ask a question like that. I think this has been heroism. This has been incredible, really, the job you've all done. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, what could have happened here or there, you know. Maybe we could have done something differently. This was a thing that has never happened before. And nobody's ever seen anything. I've never seen anything like this. I've gone to some real bad ones. I've never seen anything like this. So I admire you, and I consider you heroes and heroine, and I think you've done an amazing job. Brian, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, if I could ask you, who was the first person to contact you to notify you that this tragedy was unfolding?
Probably Christie, but I was notified by a lot, and Chip called also. Chip was here for, he thought it was going to be a little flood. He was going to miss the signing for the big, beautiful bill, and he called to apologize. He said he's going to be delayed because of a little flood, and the little flood turned out to be the biggest flood anyone's ever seen. So Chip, but Christie called right away. She was there. I looked the next morning. She was right there on the ball. So.
I just want to say, as a native Texan, I've received hundreds of messages. I told you that the other day, but I want to tell our representatives that are here in the crowd today, thank you for your response. This is Texas Strong. President Trump, this is America First policy in terms to responding to a tragedy like this. Thank you on behalf of Texas as well.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a nice reporter. That's a nice question. That's a nice, but I like his statement even better. Thank you very much, Brian. That's very nice. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Great to see you, President Trump.
Thank you.
Thank you, First Lady Melania, for being here. I'm born and raised in Texas, and there's not a person in our state who hasn't been impacted by this tragedy. But what's been so disheartening recently are these ghouls on the left, like Jasmine Crockett and the left-wing media, who want to point fingers and play partisan games and fundraise off of this crisis. And what I love about Texas is we come together in a crisis across party lines, ideological lines. So what is your message, and maybe Governor Abbott as well, to these folks on the left who are using this to gain partisan points in viral videos?
Well, I'll start off by just saying, you know, they've lost their confidence. They've had a tremendous run of bad talent. I don't say bad luck, I say bad talent. And all they want to do is criticize. And I hope we can someday be bipartisan, but all they like to do is criticize. And they're getting just absolutely clobbered, because everyone sees what an incredible job the governor did. Everybody in this room, everybody at this table in particular, but everybody in this room did an incredible job. And the public knows it. You know, the public's wise to it. They have automatic, they have their soundbite, they send out a soundbite, and it's supposed to be, you know, you're supposed to say that, and if you don't say that, they throw you out of the party. No, they've lost, honestly, they've lost their confidence. I see some of the people they're putting forward, and those people will only ruin our nation. Our nation, a year ago, was dead, and it was going down, but it was dead, and now we have the most successful nation anywhere in the world. You take a look. I was with the King of Saudi Arabia. I was with the leaders of the world recently at NATO. Every one of them said the same thing. They said, you know, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Your nation was dead 1 year ago, and now you have the hottest nation. It's the hottest nation, hottest in quotes. It's the hottest nation anywhere in the world. Every leader is saying that we're the hottest nation in the world. We've all gotten together. We've done a great job. This state has been unbelievable. I work so well with the governor and with your senators and with everybody in this state. We get it done. We've had some pretty big problems here with the floods and all the different things that we've worked out, and we respond very quickly, and they respond very quickly, and they spend their money wisely. You know, we give them a lot of money, but they spend it wisely. I can't say that's true always. Sometimes we give money and they don't spend it so wisely. They spend it very, very foolishly. So, Governor, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. You know, one thing that you pointed out that we all know about Texans is part of our bloodstream, and that is we're Texas tough. We're made for challenges. I read a piece the other day. I'll just quote one line from it, and that is, when the rivers rise, so do we, and we rise to the occasion. And the way that we do that is by everybody working together. We are one team united. We are Texans, and fighting as Texans, we're going to rebuild not just Kerrville or Hunt or Kerr County, but across the entire state, across regions. We're going to come together and fight together and ensure that we elevate even better keeping foremost in mind exactly what Dr. Phil was talking about. As we rebuild, we've got to constantly comfort the families of those who have suffered a loss. Those two things combined, and we will be our quintessential selves, and that is Texas tough, Texas resilient.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, first
the
of all,
blue shirt.
thank you for
Right over here. Go ahead.
I'll wait for Chip. He's my representative. I'll wait for him.
Mr. President, if I could just jump in and just say one thing, which is I can't thank you enough. When I called you on Friday, you said whatever you need. When I called the Secretary's office, she called me within 15 minutes and said whatever you need, and then she came here this weekend. I've never seen such a quick response and such a focus on delivering for the people. But importantly, I want to thank all of my colleagues in the House sitting right over there. Every single one of them called me personally. Every single one of them reached out to this team that the governor was just talking about, the team effort to deliver for the people of Texas. They're here now, not here to microphone. They're here just to be here because they believe in this state and they believe in what you're doing as the president and they believe in what the governor's doing. And importantly, this morning, I was at a press conference for the Community Foundation of the Hill Country, which has raised over $30 million from the great, people of this state and from around the country, and they sent checks out today of $5 million to people in this community to help them with cash for people, for small businesses, first responders, and all the people that need help to reunite. And the final point I'll just say, for all of the media clamoring to ask that ridiculous first question and try to point fingers, the governor said it best when he said that pointing fingers is for losers. This state is about looking forward, and we'll figure out how to make our systems the best they can be. But importantly, when you see 26 feet of water rising a foot per minute, don't go around pointing fingers. The people in this community rallied around to help people, and that's the enduring image. Those little girls from Camp Mystic who were singing hymns as they watched the damage as they left that camp coming out of there. And that's who the people of Texas are. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And, two words, unity and competence. If you were to ask me two words that I've seen here, one is unity. The unity has been unbelievable. And then the competence of the Coast Guard and some of the people within the Coast Guard that saved a lot of lives. They went out and they saved a lot of lives. But there were others other than the Coast Guard. But I would say competence and unity, the way everyone has just pulled together. It's rare that you see this.
Mr. President.
Again, I've been to so many and I've seen bickering and fighting and just it doesn't work the same way. This has been amazing. This is the biggest because I've never seen one like this. Neither has anybody else, by the way. Yes, please.
Hey, it's
Yes.
Joe Pags, Mr. President. It's been a while since we've seen each other. Obviously, the staffing was where it needed to be. In fact, it was heavier than it should have been because of the holiday weekend. Whatever they're saying in the left news isn't the truth. You're a developer, though. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the technology only goes as far as it goes. Kids don't have their phones. Phones are dead. People by the riverside don't have electricity. They're not going to get a phone alert that way. As a developer, going forward, knowing that everything was done lightning fast by Secretary Noem, by you, by the governor, and everybody else, you did everything right. What do we do next time, though, to make sure that people are alerted if they're dead asleep? Maybe an alarm system, maybe a siren system. You might know better than I. But what do we do going forward? Because we've got to make sure that people get the alert when it's time to get the alert. Thank you.
You'll probably have to do that. You'll probably come up with something very unique because there is no system right now. There's been a thing like this has never happened that anybody knows. Certainly not to this extent, but I know the governor and everybody is working on it. They're meeting and they'll figure something out. Go ahead, Governor.
Yeah, so we begin a session in 10 days. We will address every single question that you just asked. You mentioned some of the ideas. There are many more. And we want to hear, most importantly, we have to devise a response that's right for this community. And this community has to weigh in, and they need time to be able to convey that to us. But we're going to work on alerts. We're going to work on every single solution to make sure things like this don't happen again, not just in this community, but in other river basins across the state also. So we will work to get it right, and we've jotted down, Joe, every idea that you just mentioned.
Ted Cruz, go ahead, please, Ted.
Well, Mr. President, I want to say thank you for being here. First Lady, thank you for being here. Where we are right now, the Hill Country, is a very special part of the state. It is universally considered the most beautiful part of the state. You've got rolling hills. You've got these incredible, peaceful, wonderful rivers. The Guadalupe River Just about all of us have been swimming in that river, floating in that river. And one of the things that's really special about Kerr County is there are 40 summer camps here. This is a place where all across Texas our kids go. The governor's daughter came every year to camp here. Both of you know our girls really well. Heidi, the week before this flood, was here in Hunt picking up our daughter Catherine from camp. And Camp Mystic, that faced such devastating loss, is an institution in this state. It's 100 years old. It was founded in 1926. And I'll tell you, in Texas, it's not just here that the hurt is felt. It's every part of the state: Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, West Texas, East Texas. Texans have gone, and what's amazing is you see at the closing ceremonies of these camps, you see multiple generations. You'll see grandmothers and moms and little girls who have all gone to the same camp. And the pain that the state is feeling. And on Monday, I went and walked through Camp Mystic. In the center of the camp is a cabin called the Bubble Inn, where the littlest girls were staying. And in front of the Bubble Inn are right now 17 small white crosses in the ground. And each cross has the name of another little girl who lost her life. And the final cross has the name of Dick Eastland, the camp director who gave his life trying to save his girls. And the water rose in that camp and in that cabin 8 feet high. You can see the water line 8 feet high. It blew the windows out of the cabin and it swept those girls out. I will tell you, I've never seen anything more horrible in my life, and I just sat there crying. I saw mom and dad come up to one of those crosses, drop to their knees and kiss that cross. And the mom was weeping. I also want to tell you, and you said this, you talked about unity. The way this community, the way the state is coming together is incredible. There are stories of heroism. I met a mom and dad who had a 14-year-old boy at Camp La Junta, a boys' camp. Their 14-year-old son was awakened at 3 in the morning. The water was rising. The counselor said, "Let's go save the little boys." And they went down to the 7, 8, 9-year-old boys and pulled them out of their camps through the crashing water. And this mom and dad were crying. Now their son survived. And I said, "Look, your son will always have this trauma. You will always have this trauma. But at the same time, your son will always know when he was 14 years old that there are little boys, and one day there are men who are alive because he had the courage as a 14-year-old to risk his life to save them." And so we are grateful you're here. And I will say something Chip referenced is very true. There's a video of a school bus full of campers from Mystic after this crisis, riding past the devastation, and they are singing Christian hymns. And I promise you there's not a person here who can watch that video and not weep. Tears of sorrow, but also tears of joy. So we are grateful for the response, Governor, the first responders, everyone who's come together, and to all the moms and dads, just know we love you. The agony, my street at home, every house has a green ribbon around it for the girls at Mystic. And that's true in a lot of streets all throughout Texas. And we will come through this one way or the other. And I'll tell you, the Hunt store right now, the sign says Hunt store, except today it doesn't. It says Hunt Strong. They redid the sign. That's the spirit of who we are.
Thank you, Ted, very
Mr.
much.
President?
Well, yes, please.
I wanted to respond just to something that Joe Pag said and the governor. The speaker and I announced yesterday that we will begin our hearings in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks we're going to have a hearing in this room so that the residents and the people in this area don't have to come to Austin. We're going to come to them, and we'll stay here as long as it takes to hear their stories and their needs and their wants. So we're going to be here in 3 weeks in this room.
Good, Dan. Very good. Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming together, and the word unity again, but I just want to thank you very much. And we'll be helping you from Washington, D.C., like no other president would do. Nobody else would do it. Nobody else would be even get back to you. You know, you're fully funded, as you know. And Christy, I would say they were fully funded within minutes of hearing about this. And, you know, the state of Texas, number one, they do it right, and they've done it right for a long time. And it's, a very special place to me, I will tell you that. Politically, I don't want to say politics, but politically it's been a very special place to me. Our great Secretary of Agriculture, who you've done such a great job, Brooke Rollins, you come from Texas, and I just want to thank you. She even got the cost of eggs right down, They hit me with that one, and she got them down so quickly nobody knew what. By Easter, everybody was having eggs at a lower price than they ever thought possible. But you've done a fantastic job. But it's just been it's been a very special state to me, and it's my honor. And we will continue to work together, and it's a bad situation. And you can never say, it's going to be bigger, better, stronger. It's just so many lives have been lost. You can't say that. But we're going to make it. We're going to make it back. We're going to make it back, and we're going to make it good again. And everybody wants to do it. And I just want to thank you, and I want to congratulate you. You guys have been unbelievable. Thank you for your words before. It was unbelievable. The job you've done, Kim, everybody, every single one of you. So you should be very proud, and we're very proud of you. Thank you all very much for doing such a good job. Thank you very much.
So you've been listening to comments from President Donald Trump visiting the flooding site there in Kerrville, Hunt, and Ingram, the roundtable that he just concluded taking place in Kerrville. And he said that he'd never seen anything like it when he took the aerial tour of the area that was flooded out. He said that he wanted to express the love, support, and anguish of an entire nation to the people here in Central and South Texas because of this terrible flooding. He says, as a nation, we mourn. And Christina, I think one of the touching points that of that news conference was when Melania Trump talked about a bracelet given to her that commemorates the young girls from Camp Mystic.
She did. She actually said, "We are grieving with you. Our nation is grieving with you." And she did promise that she would be back. She said that she met with some of the mothers of these young girls, and she said that the bracelet represented Camp Mystic, and she would wear it. Another thing that the president said was that this little narrow river that becomes a monster is what he said, and that it was unbelievable to see. So now we will send it back on over to Jonathan Martinez and Mandy and hear a little bit of their take from President Trump's visit as he leaves here, this center, after talking to a little bit of the media from what he saw from Kerrville and meeting with family as well.
Yeah, it was interesting listening in. This is what we've been here all day waiting for. And of course, the river that they're talking about, the Little River, it's the one that's behind us. And it wasn't so little 1 week ago today. In fact, I thought it was interesting. Secretary Kristi Noem was saying this could be a 1,000-year flooding event, which isn't what we've heard, but that was what she said, certainly alluding to it being unprecedented, which is obvious. Yeah, I mean, it's an unprecedented situation.
Also at the press conference, the president taking the time to thank all of the first responders, all of the volunteers. One of the numbers that was thrown out at one point, some several thousand volunteers have descended onto the Hill Country community right now to help in this process of rebuilding, recovering. The lieutenant governor at one point mentioning that faith will help get us through this and the federal government will help us get through all of the debris removal. At one point during that press conference, Dr. Phil also taking the time to talk about the loss of little ones and the grief right now, and also others mentioning that at no point do you want to let them feel that we're not here for them. So at times, if perhaps you see someone who has lost a loved one, don't back off from asking them how are they doing. One of the things that was mentioned was share their stories, keep their memories alive. Yeah. This is going to be a long road right now in what it is that we're up against. Speaking of the first responders, still 161 people missing. This is going to be a very, very long road. But to know that this story is far from over and to share those stories to keep their memory alive. And that's part of the grieving process. I think to his point, what you see horrible tragedy, people who lose loved ones, and in a situation like this, and people have the reaction of, what do I do? Do I acknowledge it? Do I speak to them? Do I text them? What's appropriate? And so what he was saying was, yes, don't let these people be isolated. This horrible, tragic moment in their lives, the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to them, has happened. Talk with them, be there through it, and let's all get through it together. And that's what we're
starting to see, I know they talked about the Hunt store a lot too, and one of the former owners was there and actually spoke in the Roundtable and said, these walls went up in the 1970s. They were engineered well. The walls are still there. We're getting this store back up because it's a symbol of we're going to keep pushing, we're going to keep moving, and we're going to do this together. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to push forward. And so everybody there, several people were talking about the Hunt store, saying we absolutely have to get that store back up to show we're going to survive this.
Well, it's a symbol of hope right now, and that's part of the reason they rearranged the letters on the store itself. Instead of reading Hunt Store, it now reads Hunt Strong, and that's one of the themes that's been brought up a lot. This sense of community, this sense of being here for one another. As mentioned earlier, they've got that memorial in downtown Kerrville that continues to grow right now, but they just talked about we are Texans, and we are all in this together, and it will be a long road, but we are here for one another. It was interesting to hear every little different aspect that we did here at today's press conference.
And another note was, they've said it over and over, but here 1 week out, there's still, we will search every foot until we find every single person, every single victim, and every life that has been claimed in this horrible event. So just the promise reiterated to all of the families who are still waiting for that news. We aren't going to be leaving until this is all taken care of.
Now, interestingly so, and we'll point it out, they did open this roundtable discussion up to questions to the media. In the very first question out the gate, as to be expected, we had talked about the idea of a warning system. That question was brought up. It was the very first one posed to the president. We can tell you that from what we can tell, it was a very, I wouldn't say a defensive response, but one where they shifted the focus to say right now is not the time essentially to cast blame. That is something that will be looked at, but that was a question that was not necessarily well received. Again, being said that right now is not the time to discuss that, but it will be discussed in the upcoming legislative session in just a matter of weeks.
Cam, you can only put it off for so long. Eventually they'll have to answer those questions. And we're not just coming up with that. My inbox has been inundated with people saying, when are we going to have this? Do you think we're going to have this? Is this what they're going to do in response to it? So it's something that a lot of people, and certainly the victims' families, have been asking as well.
One of the things that the Lieutenant Governor mentioned on the tail end of that press conference there was that in 3 weeks' time, that they would be back right here in Kerrville. And that was interesting to note. Rather than have people who were impacted come up to where the special session is or make the trip out to Austin, instead the Lieutenant Governor mentioning that they will be here back in town. In fact, he said in the same spot to hear from the people who have been impacted here by the devastating floods.
And in the past couple days, we've heard the governor say, this is the first thing that we're addressing. This is the first thing that we're tackling. It is this situation. And how do we talk about it? How do we learn from it? And how do we prevent this from happening again?
So, I mean, the work is underway right now. It is still a search and recovery process. But again, we've seen the phase shift. The initial phase was just to see if there was anybody that was perhaps still alive out there. Now it's shifted into a search and recovery mode, and they're going back into that second phase, perhaps looking at different places that they've already searched before. Here where we are currently at in Ingram, we're at the Howdy's Bar and Restaurant right next to the Blue Oak RV that was essentially wiped away. We had seen two separate sets of crews, and this was over the course of a couple of days now. The ones that we saw out here, they were out there possibly looking for more bodies to recover, because again, that number still sits at 161 missing. The death toll here in Kirk County, 96 across the entire state from this one storm alone, 120.
Yeah, and so right before the president started speaking, we were taking the live looks from what was happening where we're standing behind us. There were teams, search and rescue crew. There were 3 or 4 canines. There was a boat. They had ATVs and 4-wheelers. And they were here for a while. They were looking on the other bank, and we had close shots, and a lot of them had vests and helmets on, kind of just monitoring and observing what they were doing. Some of them have left. One of the 4-wheelers is still over there, but I've seen the teams of canines drive away, and they've already been out here in this area. But it's a matter of, we have a flowing river behind us, so those efforts to try and find the remains of the victims continues, and there sadly are still very many.
One of the things, again, that the president mentioned this trip was all about was to not only see the devastation firsthand for himself along with the First Lady, but it was also to be here for the families. We had seen a line of people waiting for the motorcade to pass by as the president arrived, and he said that he just wanted to be here and share in their grief, to know that he is heartbroken right along with them, and to know that the support and the help is there. In those stories that he shared in speaking with the first responders and seeing some of the positive brief firsthand, in so many words, was eye-opening. But he had mentioned it's devastation that nobody would have ever imagined.
They called out to the Coast Guard a number of times as well. They've come in their search crews, but that was instrumental in the midst of the crisis when everything was happening and people were being rescued. And we had this story a couple days ago, and I have the name typed on the computer, but it was one specific. It was his first response. He's a member of the Coast Guard, and he was at Camp Mystic, and he was credited with helping to save like 160 girls. He was going through and just saying, come with me, and getting them to higher ground. But that's one of the names of one of the Coast Guard members who they actually specifically singled out to say thank you to.
Yeah, the president had made that mention, and shortly thereafter.
He was looking for him. Is he here? Is he here?
The First Lady, as you all had mentioned, had talked about the fact that she had met with families there at Camp Mystic, and is now wearing that bracelet that she had received from those families, all the while saying that they are here for those families, but also making the promise that she would be back as well. So that's another sign of saying we are with you in this all the way.
All right, we are going to start to wrap this up. Of course, we've been with you throughout the morning. When we're not on air, you can go online, news4sa.com, and we will be back here like we normally are at 5 and 6. So we're going to stay out here live and learn as much as we can and bring you as much as we can here from the ground. We
will have a full recap of that press conference that you just saw a short moment ago. We will also hear stories of survival from across the Hill Country right now, as this does mark 1 week since the Hill Country flooding disaster. We will see you next at 5 o'clock.